Yeah, wait, he's alive. He's alive. Yeah, wait. Look.
The king.
Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Wait.
Hey, oh man, we have people in the chat. Y'all been waiting a few minutes. Show of hands for any who enjoyed the convenience of me actually posting a day in advance. Anybody actually make it tonight because I posted a day in advance? Anybody notice the neat imagery my wife made? She spent a lot of time and she ran multiple versions by me, and we finally came to a agreement on this really cool one. I'm going to bring Jeff in. We have all kinds of things. I hope you guys are excited for tonight, and I hope most of you saw the first video from last week. Otherwise, there's a lot of nuggets that are going to be missing that we might make references to.
Hey, brother.
Hey, man. Hey, does that song pump you up?
That does, man. I'm like ready. I'm ready. I need to get me a song, man. I like the little song. I like that.
If you like R&B stuff, let me know. I've got two guys. I'm not gonna promise on their behalf, but
yeah,
you let me know on what kind of thing, and I can hit them up for you if you want something like that.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out to your wife, man. I absolutely love the thumbnail, man. Now, I've seen a lot of your thumbnails, and she's creative. She's really good, but I think that's her best one yet. That's really good.
I told her last week, I said, you done messed up now making them professional because the standard has now risen,
Right?
I said, going back to the ARC book,
right,
type of vibes that we used to do. I don't know if I want to go back to that now.
Right.
But it's hard, man. I was telling her she was trying to come up with ideas. She had an image of like Mordecai overhearing the two guys with the assassination plot.
Yep.
And I was like, we already covered that. Like, we're going to go, we'll refer to it, but we're past that. And I said, this next video, and she goes, well, tell me what it's about. And I was like, we're going to be talking about, so my main theme, because we got a bunch of themes tonight.
We do. We have 5 chapters to do.
Oh, I know. We'll get through them. But the main theme I kept seeing in this last half is strategy and tactics.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I really wanted to bring that up. And, it's funny, strategy and tactics, whether you're talking military or business. I even researched some articles on how people view things just to see terminology and how they plan things. Because I was looking to see, you can see the strategies and the tactics here of Esther and Haman and Mordecai and the king. There's a lot of things going on here. Yeah. And it's complex stuff, man, the more you break it down and look at it. And it's funny because the word strategy and tactics, it sounds like 2 different words for the same thing, but they're not. Strategy, you get an idea of what you want to do, but tactics, you're now setting up steps,
right? Mm-hmm.
But you have a timeline. And when we're looking at, especially with Esther, with Hadassah, timing is key. It's vital. And that's one of the things I want to get into tonight. So I told her, I said, it'd be really cool if we got a chessboard in there. Yeah. So she kept making images of a chessboard with people on there, like as pieces.
Yeah.
And it looked stickerish. And we're like, it's a cool idea, but it's just not translating.
Yeah.
And then right before we were about to shoot the video yesterday, when you were not able to get online and then my computer was crashing and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
She came up with this image. So I'm really excited about that. But anyways, Queen takes Bishop, man.
Dude, I love the title. And listen, that is, and it's unexpected too. Haman has no clue, no idea. And maybe we can talk about that too. That's another thing, is that we try to give the enemy, the enemy and his players so much credit because they are connected into the occult. They are connected into the in crowd or whatever that's going on. But we see here that this takes Haman by complete, and I mean complete, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how you want to get started, but man, I'm ready to roll. I am pumped.
Hey, right before we start, Queen takes Bishop. Is that better than game set match?
Oh yeah. Okay,
is it better than the plot the plots are thickening. Because that was my original title, Plots with a Z, which I did on Facebook, and I don't know if anybody caught that, but that's a Yiddish word, Plots with a Z. It's referring to like exploding with emotion and frustration and stress. So plots, you know. But okay, yeah, we'll get going.
I'm down for Queen takes Bishop, man. That is.
Yeah, I really like that
awesome.
one. I mean, when you look at the position that Haman had, Bishop would be the best fitting position. This was a priestly position. Yeah. Okay, so Jeff, warning, I have all kinds of crazy notes. Hey, so kind of like the last video when I wasn't expecting to talk about Xerxes not being the king. Yeah. Tonight, I've got something that I was not expecting. That this week I did some studying, and I found another thing in the book of Esther that made me go, huh. And then I found the answer that most people have agreed on, like Xerxes. Yeah. And I disagree with the common answer. So I've got another interesting wrench to throw in. Okay, so heads up, man. Not only do I have a bunch of notes, but they're like all over the place. So bear with me. I'm going to try not to bounce back and forth, but I'm not making any promises.
Well, and we've got and guys that are listening, we have 5 chapters we're going to try to hit through, and there is so much in these 5 chapters. But I'm believing Yah that He's going to allow His Ruach to move us in the areas that He wants us to address, and hit those topics that we need to hear for today for our walks. And that's what I'm believing. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah. And He's been very faithful in doing that when we do videos. And I pray for those things, because otherwise, man, we're just sitting here rambling, right? Yeah. You know, if the Spirit didn't take over, and man, does He do it. Okay. Right. So we did the first 4 chapters. Yep. We're not going to recap any of that, really. We might go back and reference some things as we're moving forward. But for anybody who's curious about the many gold nuggets that we shared on the first 4 chapters, you got to go look at the first video from last week. And what did we title it? The Myrtle's Diadem.
The Myrtle's Diadem.
And we even talk
that was good stuff.
And we even talk a little bit about why that's the title and what's being referenced there. And there's some hidden things in that imagery, like that white flower with a purple outline of a myrtle. That's why the lettering was white with purple. I mean, there was all kinds of little things my wife kept hiding in the imagery. So if you look for it, you can find some nuggets there. Okay, so chapter 5, right? This is after the decree's been made, right? And Esther has agreed to do it, and they did their fasting for 3 days. No food or water. This is hardcore fast for 3 days. Yep. And it wasn't just Esther and Mordecai, but it was Esther and her maidens and all of the Jews. It seemed like united front as a body, fasting for 3 days. And we talked a little bit about how much like in the book of Jonah, you see this fork in the road situation going on, right? Where, I mean, it's destruction or restoration. Yeah. And they fasted united, and we see restoration. So it's really interesting.
Well, and one thing that I'd want to really bring out, and I know we're not trying to recap, but you know, she said, "If I perish, I perish." And guys, that is, how much are you holding on to your core beliefs? How much are you holding on to what Yah has given you? If I perish, I perish. Man, I think that's really, I think we need to really have that in mind going through the rest of the 5 chapters. There's a lot of stuff here that could mess up, go wrong, blow up, and not only is she perishing, the whole nation's perishing.
Right. If she goes down, it's all of Jews. But Mordecai told her, if you don't do this thing, Yah will send somebody to deliver, but you and your household, you know. So there was this understanding of, if you don't stand up, Mordecai had the faith that they will be delivered. Yeah. This wasn't a question of if, but rather when and by whom. Right. And so he's telling Esther, he's telling Hadassah, look, maybe this is the reason why you were the queen. That whole 4 verse 14 that everybody always quotes, such a time as this, that's what he's telling her. This is the purpose of your life, right? Okay, so we're in chapter 5. It came to pass, we're on the 3rd day, right? We talked last week about the symbolism of 7 in the first 4 chapters over and over and over again. Right. You have that Shabbat reference, the end of the millennial reign reference. You had the 7 council, the 7 maidens, the 7 princes. 7 was all over the place in the first 4 chapters. Well, now we're seeing the number 3. So it came to pass on the 3rd day, not after the 3rd day. Well, and pointing to Yeshua on the 3rd day. It was on the 3rd day, right? So, I mean, there's lots of things here. So it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal apparel. Okay, we have to stop for 2 seconds. We've talked about this before, like Saul just changing his kingly robe. We talked about Elijah with his mantle. This is a physical representation mirroring the spiritual. She's putting on her royal, and this is she's getting ready to go into the inner court, right, of the palace. So, you come dressed for the wedding feast correctly. Absolutely. Right? You don't want to be the guy who shows up not dressed right. So this is a physical. She knows that the environment demands this, but this is also a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
She is going spiritually dressed in royal apparel. Keep in mind, she fasted and prayed for 3 days. Yeah. If there's any time that Hadassah is spiritually wearing royal apparel, this is it right here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I find that very interesting. Okay, so she stood in the inner court. How long? We're not really told, which I think is an interesting to think about. Yeah. Stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, right across from.
Yeah.
And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, when he saw her, which means she'd been standing there for at least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That she obtained favor in his sight. His heart warms, right? He's got that moment.
One thing that the MEV brings out, I like it. I know you read off the King James. This says, when the king saw Queen Esther standing quietly out in the courtyard, she's not making a fuss. She's not like, hey, I'm over here, or standing there defiantly, like, hey, you need to come see me. She knows, she understands her position. She understands her place, and she is there quiet. And man,
it's a complete 180 from loud, obnoxious, rebellious.
Vashti. Yeah.
Vashti, when you have her refusing to come, not coming when she's called. Here's Hadassah coming uncalled.
Right.
Right. And she's showing humility. She's showing an understanding and appreciation for the authority. Well, she understands.
It's just like, and then it says, and she gained favor in his sight. It's just like when Yeshua was talking about when you go to a dinner, sit yourself at the lower seat. And then allow someone to move you up instead of going and demanding the higher seat, and then someone else comes in that's more important. Then you get kicked down. I mean that never looks good, right? So this is all. I mean, so many. We got 5 chapters. All right,
I know. We got all kinds of stuff, Jeff. Well, this one's probably going to be a little bit longer. I don't know how long you're going to plan on running in here.
I'm here. We can run till 7 in the morning. I've got to be at work at
I can't do that.
Yeah, so, all right.
I have to be at work at 7. Okay, so the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. This was allowing her to move forward. This was the representation of her not being killed for coming into the inner court, not being called, right? And so he holds it out. Esther draws near, right? She came in there and waited to be called to come closer.
Yep.
Right. And we have to look at this spiritually. It says come boldly before the throne in Hebrews, but it doesn't say go in there obnoxiously demanding. It doesn't say, having attitude, rebellious. You're going before a king. And when we are talking about how we want to do this in our walk, we're going before the King of Kings. So you go present yourself and you wait to be called to come forward.
Right. And just like the priest had certain clothes that they wore once a year. Everybody thinks that they wore the full the full ephod and the breastplate. No. They had a special white garment that they wore once a year to go past the holy place and go into that Holy of Holies to be before the King of Kings. And you had to have yourself right. Man, can I just throw this out here just real quick? In those priestly garments, there was one garment that you couldn't see. It was the linen breeches. Okay, they were like short, kind of like almost like basketball shorts. You know how long that basketball shorts are, right? Kind of like that. And once you had on your white linen robe, you have your turban on, you've got your sash on, you could have all this stuff on, and you're like, man, it's hot out here today. I don't feel like wearing that. If you didn't wear that one garment and you try to go in there, bam, you fall over dead. Why? Because you're not dressed properly to meet the king. And I can't stress the importance of what Esther did here. She went and she put on not the common clothes, right? Not even the party clothes, not the we're going to entertain guest clothes. She put on the royal apparel. And I think that is so important. There are certain types of garments that we wear depending on the situation. And are you maybe you're in spiritual warfare right now? Well, You need to find out what those garments are. Maybe you're involved in prayer and supplication. There's garments for each type of these things. And we're talking physical garments here, but we're meaning a spiritual type of garment. It's a different mindset depending on what situation you're in. And man, Esther had this down. She's like, I need to go in with the right mindset, with the right heart. Yeshua talks about in the book of Hebrews that the word divides against the thoughts and the intents of the heart. You might be doing the right thing, but if it's not right in your heart with it, you got the wrong clothes on, and just like we talked about last time, you're going to be thrown out of the wedding feast.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. You might have been called, but if you didn't come forward, and then many called, few chosen. Right.
Yeah.
Vashti was called, but not chosen.
Not chosen. There we go.
Okay. So, she draws near and she touches the top of the scepter, which also shows, again, a nod of humility to the authority. I mean, this is part of the protocol here. You touch the scepter and then you can speak, right? But look at what the physical is representing there. This is and we know a king with a iron rod scepter, right? Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So there's things here that are just blown right by that people don't see. And these are the small things, Jeff. We haven't even gotten to the interesting stuff yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold my peace on things, but
I know. I've got some things already that I want to go back on to mention on things I meant to mention last week and I didn't. Okay. So the king said unto her, what will thou? Right, Queen Esther, what is your request? It shall be given to you to half of the kingdom. Real quick, there's one other portion of scripture where I remember a king saying, what is your request? I'll give you up to half the kingdom. There's only one other time in scripture I'm aware of this, and that was Herod. Yeah. And that's when you get offered half the kingdom and they ask for John the Baptist's head, but that's neither here nor there, but I find it very interesting. So let's pause here real quick and talk for a second here, Jeff.
Okay.
Esther prayed and fasted for 3 days. She asked all of the Jews in Persia to pray and fast. And it seems like it wasn't even just in that palace area, right? But throughout the 127 provinces we talked about, from India to Ethiopia, that's a lot of Jews praying and fasting, 3 days of no food and water. And I'll wait for that on the later on in the note here. But okay, so they're working up towards this. You've been praying and fasting for 3 days, Jeff. You finally go to see the king. You're afraid that he's going to kill you on sight. You're coming without being called. She hasn't seen him in a month, she said, right?
Yep.
And she touches the scepter. Is the first thing out of her mouth, finally, I've been given the approval to give my request. Here's my request. My people are in danger. My life's in danger. Nope. Why didn't she just spit it out right then and there, Jeff?
I'm telling you, I believe that Yah has given her a plan, or what we talked about at the beginning, a strategy, some tactics going on. I see this all the way through from chapter 5 all the way through. I'm telling you, we as a body need to pay attention to what Yah we need to say what he tells us to say when he tells us to say it. Sometimes I think we get a word where it's like, blah, 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 we kind of just throw up, right? Go ahead, because I kind of feel like that's
I'm
where
just
you're
saying,
going.
I mean, she's, there's got to be anxiety and nerves here that she's been praying against while trying to figure out. I mean, she thinks that she might get killed. If I perish, I perish. She's trying to get that mindset, and as cool and as moving and Hollywood or Shakespearean as it sounds, and it is a cool line. When she said it, she meant it. That was out from the heart. If I perish, I perish. I mean, she's going into this court understanding she might die. Yeah. The luxury of being the queen, living in the palace, having this position, forget all that, ever seeing family again, all possibly down the drain. There's no discussion of trying to escape or hiding. There's no discussion of trying to, rebel. There was enough Jews, Jeff, that they could have just did an uprising. Sure. None of this is being discussed at all. Right. And she finally gets the gold scepter. He says, I'll give you up to half my kingdom. And instead of saying, oh, no, we don't need to go there. I just my life, just my life and my people's lives.
Up to half the kingdom could have included, hey, can you just protect my people? She could have said that.
Well, I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, if we're not being Holy Spirit led, right? Yeah. If we're not sticking to like, this is an important thing. We've spent 3 days dedicated to making sure we get the right timing and that Yah honors this and that he's with us and that we're not so sinful that he's not going to hear us and that this is going to be part of our punishment and consequence for being disobedient. This is about being prepared, being cleansed, and being ready to come before the throne the throne and the throne of thrones, right? She's got
Right.
2 thrones she's coming before.
Yeah.
He says, I'll give you half the kingdom, up to half the kingdom. And she could have simply said, you know what? For as many Jews as there are, we only need 5%.
Yeah.
Give us 1 province.
Give us a
I don't
province.
need half the kingdom.
Yeah.
I just want 1 province, you know, and because I'm in the palace, let's make it close to here. She could have, you know, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You know, so here's my question for you, Jeff, and this is a bit speculation here and opinion. You and I both believe that there's strategies and tactics. You and I both believe that the Spirit was guiding the situation on what to say, when to go about it, timing, and there's some things I'm gonna be hinting at here in a second. But did she know that if the scepter was put forward to her, that she was gonna offer a banquet? Did she know that beforehand, or do you think that was in the moment? He hands out the scepter, she touches it, and he goes, up to half the kingdom. What do you want? And she goes, let's do a banquet. I mean, do you think this was? I
personally think that she got a word to ask for a banquet, and I think the rest of it came out.
So you think she knew that going in?
I think that was the direction, whether or not word for word that's what she heard or whatever. I think, I don't know, but there's arguments both ways. The scripture talks about don't worry about what you're going to say when you're in front of a king, but in that self-same moment, the Holy Spirit will give you that what you're supposed to say. So I definitely could see that, but I believe in fasting and prayer. I kind of think that she had some kind of an idea, but she may not have. But
you're leaning more towards that she had an idea,
right? I do kind of think she had an idea, but I can see it both ways because I know how the scripture works, and sometimes,
I was just curious. It's just speculation.
Sometimes God gives you a little bit, sometimes He doesn't. But man, either way, the boldness right there. I don't think that she knew that she was going to be offered up to half the kingdom.
No,
that could have tripped her up. So just thinking of it like that, maybe God didn't give her anything and just gave her some peace. He gave her some shalom to stand for the king.
If He did, would that not have been tempting? Would that not have been somewhat of a version of a Matthew 4?
Absolutely.
Offering the world.
Yeah.
You were told, if she was told, you're going to ask for a banquet and we're going to do this God's timing or the right way.
Yeah.
And then she goes in thinking, okay, if He hands out the scepter and then He says up to half the kingdom, and then the flesh says, hey, you don't even need to do God's timing.
You don't even have to go that way.
Forget that.
God opened a new door.
God changed His mind, right? There are all kinds of whatever your flesh wants to tell you in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to think about. If we're praying and fasting and we feel we're given a clear guidance, and then along the way the plot twist changed, do we recognize that for what it is, or do we allow our flesh to tell us, oh, God must have changed things? Maybe I wasn't hearing clearly.
Yeah.
Right. All the more reason to make sure you did hear clearly. Right. There's all kinds of things we need to consider looking at this. Okay. So he offers half the kingdom. Her response is, if it seems good to you, let the king and Haman, which is interesting as well, come this day, today, to the banquet that I have prepared. I have prepared. Is that a past tense? Did she already have the banquet prepared before he held out the scepter, Jeff? Is that verse right there possibly solidifying your theory there that she knew ahead of time?
Yep.
Already had in anticipation, trusting that Yah told her. I'm just saying it kind of seems that way. Okay, so then the king says, oh, okay, right? Yeah, make Haman to hurry up, make haste that he may do as Esther has said. So the king, and right there I find that funny phrasing. Cause Haman to make haste, make him speed up so that he may do as Esther has said. Now they're talking about this banquet, but an overall picture as the outside view for us, the reader, we get to look at this. Highlight that real quick for anybody taking notes. Make a little underline. Cause Haman to haste to do as Esther said.
To do what the woman said. Can we just say that?
How about we say woman of God?
Woman of God.
Can we say that? Can we say that child of God who just got done, fasting and praying? So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said to Esther at the banquet of wine, all right, what is your petition? We know that this wasn't it, right? We know that this isn't your petition. You don't go all this way. You could have sent a courier or something, right? And it shall be granted you. What is your request? Even to half the kingdom, it shall be performed. So that we have that second time. So again, if God had made it clear of what her request should be, this is a second poking in the flesh of you could have up to half the kingdom. Mordecai said that, if the Jews get delivered and you don't do anything about it, you're going to get killed. But the king said you could have up to half the kingdom.
Well,
You can go hide in half the kingdom. That's a big kingdom.
Something else, just to kind of go back to a little bit what we talked about at the first part, part one in this series. I think the king highly loved Hadassah. I think that he really cared for her, because this is not typical language, like you mentioned. How many times in the scripture do we ever see this? Up to half my kingdom. That's not just a saying. That's not just something that's just going out. And for him to offer that to a queen, man, that's, I don't know. So that to me shows some maybe some reassurance to her as well. Not only could it be tempting in a way, but it also shows some reassurance to her that, hey, just keep going with this. God has given you His favor. We're supposed to pray that. Father, Jehovah, may your face shine upon us. That's talking about that favor being upon us. And man, this is to me, this is an encouragement for her. But man, it could also definitely still be that little poke, that little prod there, to get her off of the word that I think that she was already given.
Right. But I do like the reassurance, because that's usually what I see. And in personal experience, I've had that where I was fearful on confronting somebody, even if it wasn't like a heavy correction, something that I felt led, they're going to think I'm goofy, or they're going to think that I'm unrighteously judging them, or think I'm better than them, or holier than thou, or something. Who am I to say something? And I know I'm not, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I would go on the prompting of when and how to say it. And it'd be all, shaking internally, sometimes even externally. Right.
Sure.
And you're getting the words out. And as you're getting the words out, the person says things of like, even if it's this, and something they say confirms all the more. And you're like, man, you don't even know right now that what you're saying is spiritually telling me just to keep moving forward, even though I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had that experience enough times to recognize exactly what you're referring to there.
Yep.
Okay. So then Esther says, my petition and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king.
That's right.
And if it please the king to grant my petition. Look at the wording and the wisdom here.
Yeah.
Right? Again, going back to that behaving with wisdom and mannerism that we talked about before, we referred to with David and with Joseph and with Daniel. All of these individuals have been known to carry themselves with wisdom and behave godly in a way that it emanates from them, to the point where you can't even, you can't dismiss it. You can't say that it's not the case, no matter whether you like them or not.
Well, Ian, I came out of the charismatic, crazy-matic movement, word of faith kind of stuff back in the day. It's just kind of like the regular church. Do you throw out all the nuggets of truth that you learn? Yeah, you throw out the sticks, but there's still hay there, right? So they're coming before the throne boldly. There's an idea that we need to understand. But again, there's a proper etiquette. There's a proper way that we go before our king, and I think that's one of the ways that some of the charismatic movement may have missed. Going up and demanding and doing all this, kind of these prayers and these proclamations. I tell you, there is a way that we go before the Father. When Yeshua taught the disciples how to pray, he didn't say that you go up there and you shake your fist and say, Father, your covenant says this, and I command you to do this because your covenant says to do it like this. No. Yeah. I think this is a beautiful picture of prayer right here, of how we're supposed to pray to the Father. I think that there's some wording in here. Father, this is my petition, my prayer. If I have won your favor, if it pleases you, Father, if this is part of your will, if this is part of your perfect will, not your good, not your acceptable will, but Father, your perfect will. This is what I'm praying. And if not, I don't want it. You know what I mean? That's the language that I think that we have forgotten, or maybe we've messed up and not really understood some things there. But yeah, I think this is beautiful. I think this is go ahead.
If I have found favor, and like you said, this is echoing. I loved how you put it. I'm not going to even try to reword everything that you just said, because there's no need to.
Yeah,
I love what you said.
Yeah,
and just the wisdom here, and then the poetic nature too. This is not a rushing. This is not a just word vomit, right? This is not a all over the place. This is not an emotional, even though internally there's
it's a lot of emotional
things going on.
Yeah.
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Everything is on the line, Jeff. It's her life. It's
She
her
is at
husband's
the
life,
precipice
all
right
of it.
here. She's
Oh.
teetering on that. Yeah, she's just right there.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're reading this book for the first time,
Inside,
if you're in it, oh, dude,
she's
you
biting
are
her nails,
on
man.
the edge. You have to be. You have to be
Yeah.
on the edge. What's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and not only is she saying, your will be done in a manner of speaking, right? But if I have found favor, so it's that whole if I am in your goodwill, right? This is a you've given me reassurance.
Yep.
So I'm going on. If that's the case, if I am favorable in your sight, then let my request be also.
Right.
If it pleases the king to grant my petition, if you are pleased to do this thing, don't do it just for my sake.
Yeah.
And to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare. Now you've got future tense. This one has not been prepared ahead of time. And I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. So when she says, I will do tomorrow as the king has said, that's kind of hinting there that there is still one final request.
Right.
That he keeps asking her, what is your request? And she hasn't come out with it yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now this change of scene. This is when you go, like, out of all parts of the Bible, right? Should we talk about this for 2 seconds? We didn't acknowledge this last time.
Yeah.
Esther is one of those portions of scripture that the skeptics say shouldn't be in the Bible.
Right.
You're familiar with that? And a lot of times when people argue that Esther shouldn't be in the Bible, there's two things that they hinge on.
Jehovah
They say
been.
The Dead Sea Scrolls don't have it in there. But here's my first thing, Jeff. The Dead Sea Scrolls are in fragments. We don't even have, outside of the book of Isaiah, from what I understand, we don't have the full book of anything, first off. Isaiah is the only one we have full. Right. Second off, wasn't it just last March that they found new discoveries of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes.
We're talking 50, 60 years, Jeff, and we still haven't even found everything there is to be found, let alone translate everything, let alone figure out what's missing in the fragments, Jeff. Some of these fragments are just like pieces of a sentence, and they're able to piece a lot together. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm just saying we don't even have half pages.
Well, and I had a dear brother like to argue that was on Facebook, and I brought out some stuff about the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I was trying to encourage him to go out and actually study a little bit. He kept quoting this one book. He was like, well, I've got this book, and it says it's not in there, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, that book is copyrighted. I knew what book he was talking about, and it was copyrighted, I think, back in 1993. Dude, that's old, right? Yeah. So you need to have the most up-to-date information. And even with that, there are still things that we're finding. Like you say, there's still things that we're finding. I won't even really get into the book of Enoch. We have a full Aramaic copy of the book of Enoch that was auctioned off. It was looked at by some scholars and like, wow, this is it. This is legit. Full Aramaic copy of the first Enoch, dating all the way back to like around 250 BC. The oldest fragment that we have of the book of Genesis, it's a fragment, is 300 BC. So I mean that kind of gives the audience a little bit of idea of what we're dealing with here. And I 100% agree. Just because it's not found yet in the Dead Sea Scrolls, not an issue.
I'm saying yet too. I'm just saying. Look, I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen. It's just internally, I've got that feeling that if enough of the body really feels that it's gonna rely on the Dead Sea Scrolls to vouch for the validity of Esther, that it'll come forward. But here's the thing, okay? The book of Esther really isn't needed in terms of if you need salvation and things like that. You could put it to the side and you'll be okay, right? Mm-hmm. But for me personally, and take it as it is, people are going to either like that I say this or they're going to hate it, and it is what it is. But for me personally, I feel that there is no issue with the book of Esther. Because I believe that the Spirit has allowed me to see that there's not an issue. I believe he's got, I didn't get the go ahead and throw it out because I went to him on it because there's the two things. It's not Dead Sea Scrolls, which wasn't enough to raise the flag for me, but it is for some. And then the other thing is that there is a Babylonian story where you have three main characters and they have similar names. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's, doesn't that fit the typical skeptic answer? Doesn't it always, like, you find anything that looks anywhere similar that's Gnostic or whatever of the world that may even be younger than the original story that they're trying to say that it ruins the validity of, and that's all they need, right? That's what skeptics do. They want to be skeptic.
Well, and it also, I think the third big reason, it doesn't mention Yehovah by name. The Tetragrammaton is not mentioned
Right.
anywhere in the book of Esther.
Right.
But we
see his hand throughout the whole thing.
We see where they are praying and fasting. Who are they? They're not praying and fasting to Dagon. They're not praying and fasting to Ishtar. They're not praying and fasting to any of these pagan gods. They are being persecuted because they are Jews, and they are following the Hebrew scriptures. Who are they fasting to, guys? Ta-da! It's Yehovah. There we go.
There's all kinds of things here going on that you know. It's just I just wanted to get that out there. That I wanted to acknowledge, because if we didn't acknowledge it, I feel we'd get people commenting, and we might still under the video afterward that says that's not even supposed to be in there. I understand that viewpoint. I've looked at that viewpoint. I strongly disagree with it, but it is not a viewpoint that I draw ties with. But I wanted to acknowledge it. Okay. Yeah. So with all that being said, I have the entire Bible, Jeff. If I'm going to be honest, I think the best book for a play out of the Bible is Esther. It's just my personal opinion. Yeah. And I've been thinking about this, and I was like, man. So for doing Purim, my little ones did an Esther play, and that was the first time we had them. My son was the king, and my daughter was doing the Esther position. Yeah. We were doing all kinds of stuff, and it was fun. But anyways, we'll probably talk about that at the end of the video if it's not like midnight when we get done here. But I wanted to acknowledge that. Okay, we're about to start getting into some of the interesting stuff that I've been holding back. Okay. Yeah. All right, verse 9. Unless you had something to say before we move forward. Okay.
Carry on.
So verse 9 of chapter 5, then went Haman forth that day joyful and glad heart, right? And it doesn't say this after the first banquet. So it almost seems like, it, or the mentioning of the first, but rather we have this, you have the first banquet. If there was any nerves of Haman, which I don't think there is in this situation, but if there was any thoughts in the back of his head of there's going to be issues, why is she wanting to meet with the king? It's gone.
It's laid to rest.
Her request was to have a banquet. I got asked. The only names we see being asked is Haman and the king. So it seems like it's a very intimate, private affair, which is another thing I wanted to bring up here.
Well, and it's helping to stroke Haman's ego. It's helping to elevate him in his own mind. I think it is brilliant by Yah. Again, going back to your wife's thumbnail, the picture of the chess piece, the chessboard. This is setting things up in This is setting things in motion, setting things up to make it just so smooth. And again, this takes Haman by complete, and I mean complete surprise.
It's strategic, but it's tactical, Jeff. And the best chess masters, they see the board moves ahead.
Oh yeah.
If they make one move, they're already 6 moves ahead in their mind. Yeah. So and Yah is the ultimate chess match player, right? Yeah. What was it, Marzulli that talked about the chess match of the cosmos or whatever he calls it? Right. We see Yah doing this. He's getting ready to use the queen to take the bishop, but there's moves he's taking 5-6 moves ahead. And I mean, we could really argue thousands of years ahead, right? Making these moves and thing. Yeah. Knowing that Saul wasn't going to kill all of the Amalekites, the Agagites here, which is another thing I wanted to bring up here. That was another thing I was saying about doing for the whole theme of the video instead of it being the chess match. I was saying about doing the whole vampire-like demon cursed being hung on a tree, which is something I want to get into tonight. Okay. So, but we see Haman's joyful and with a glad heart.
I love that.
This is the first and probably the only time we see that describing Haman. Yeah. The entire thing. I mean, he gets promoted and all this stuff. This is the one time we see he is joyful, full of joy, and with a glad heart. He got to sit down with the queen and the king. The queen had her chance to make the request in the court, in public. Make a big spiel of it. If you really love your queen, if I have found favor in your sight, then you will save me. No, this is a private, intimate affair where she is serving him. If it pleases you. And then what does the environment say? I've set a banquet for you and your right-hand man.
Yeah, there's no guile, there's no manipulation here.
Exactly. And it's a private, intimate affair where we see that she is respectful of the authority and she's respectful as him as the king, but also as the husband. Yeah. Right? I'm going to bring forth before you a testimony, but first I want to bow in a way that I should and not in a way that I shouldn't. I'm going to save a point for in a second here. I keep trying to jump ahead. Okay, so Haman's full of joy and glad heart. Yep. And then it says, but, right? There's that big but, right? Yeah. There's the but. Yep. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate,
Yep.
faithful, right? Like Uriah the Hittite,
Yep.
faithful at the king's gate. Man, dude, did your heart break when David had Bathsheba and he's trying to get Uriah to go spend some time with her so that the
he's at
pregnancy
the
looks
king's
like it's
gate.
not David?
He said, "I'm
And
gonna sleep
Uriah
right
goes
here."
where? Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even go home.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, the loyalty and the heartbrokenness of that
And
situation. And
David's like, "Man, go home, be with your wife." He's like, "Nope, I can't. I have a
Right.
responsibility."
But there's
I'm gonna be
multiple
right here.
reasons for that, and one of
Oh,
which
yeah.
he wants it to look like it's Uriah's son.
Oh,
not
I know.
David's.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and God's like, no, you quit trying to take the bishop. I've got this. You know what I mean? Like God's the chess player. He ain't playing around.
Yep.
Okay, so he's joyful and glad.
But
He's got the second position in command.
yeah,
Jeff.
yeah,
And if you realize, real quick hint back to the last week's video, Haman got promoted right after the assassination conspiracy plot to the king is foiled by none other than Mordecai and Esther. But Haman gets promoted and rewarded. Yeah. Things are going good, and the king's like, man, I'm in a good mood. Things are going good. And he looks at his right-hand man and says, let's make it official. Let's make you assistant to the assistant of the regional manager, right? Let's bring I had to do it, Jeff. I thought you might enjoy that. But he makes him the right-hand man, right?
Yeah.
So Haman is the right-hand man of the world-leading empire of its time.
The largest empire at the time. Absolutely.
Second in command, right?
Yep.
The vice president, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And he gets invited to a personal, intimate affair of a banquet with the king and queen.
He's not only being recognized by the king, he's also being recognized by the queen as someone of importance. Man, his head, his head is just like swelling up.
The last queen wouldn't even recognize the authority of the king, but this queen recognizes the authority of the king and the second in charge, even though she has a personal issue with him. But I'm going to leave it, but there's other reasons. We'll get to it in a minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got all that going for him, Jeff.
Yeah.
And then there's that but when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, which means he was sitting down. He was sitting at the gate.
Yep.
And apparently he wanted him to stand up. You make that point to stand up, like when the commander of chief comes into the room, you stand up and you salute, or you stand up and you bow, depending on what culture and country and things like that. He stood not up nor moved for him. There wasn't even well, maybe you know how you go to pretend to, and then they say, oh, no, stay seated. And you're like, okay, good. I wasn't really going to.
Wasn't even the nod.
There was no, I'll pretend like I'm going to do it. Nothing, right? Nothing. And Haman, as we pointed out last week, is paying attention to Mordecai now. He didn't notice originally until friends at the gate were mad at Mordecai and pointed it out for him. But now he's targeted. He's on the radar. Okay, so he wouldn't stand up and he didn't move for him. And now what does it say about Haman?
Hang on 1 second. The MEV also says this, that he neither stood up nor trembled because of him. So it's that ego going crazy. It's this all. Go ahead.
There's none of that fear, and I'm not talking about scared fear. We're talking about authority fear.
Authority,
right? Like how we're supposed to have towards authority towards God.
Yep.
And he's seen that that's not there, right?
Yep.
He's full. He's now what? He was full of joy with a glad heart. Now he's full of indignation against Mordecai.
He's changed clothes.
Oh, I know it. Yes, Jeff.
He had on a joyful garment, and he's like, nope, I'm done with that. I'm putting on this coat of offense. I'm going to put on this coat of indignation. There we go.
I'm telling you.
Just like that.
Okay, Jeff, how many times do you and I and the listener, though?
Yes.
We're full of joy and we are praising God in our walk. Things are going good. And we see one little thing that we look to stroke our ego. We don't have the likes and the views we want. We don't have this. We don't have that. Our friend didn't invite us to an outing. They invited somebody else, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, we're full of indignation.
Yeah.
Should it not be so, Jeff? Full of joy to full of indignation off of some small little stupid thing.
Let's just go back to, back maybe 5, 10 years ago. I'm in the church, right? Regular church. Man, you have a great service. The Holy Spirit's moved. You feel great. You walk outside, some guy cuts you off in the parking lot, and you lose everything right there. Right? Right? Does that happen? That's what happened. That's what happened to Haman right here. He lost everything that he had. Bam.
Yeah.
He may have even been feeling. Watch this. He may have even been feeling the anointing of Yah as he's sitting with Esther and the king, because he is flowing in that what God has given her to do, his perfect will. She is flowing in that, and he is feeling some shalom like he's never felt in his entire life.
Mm.
and he loses all of it right there, second half of verse 9.
That's I hadn't even thought of that, Jeff. You know, that goes completely against the whole king being a chauvinistic, pervy, drunk guy, and Esther is just a submissive slave who's can't think for herself, and Vashti's the feminist icon that we should be praising. That's a completely opposite view. I just wanted to bring that up. Anybody who missed last week's video, I'm telling you, you're gonna want to check it out because the first 4 chapters of Esther, and we really went through some things there. Okay, so just like that, he's full of indignation. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, right? So maybe that shalom of Yah it kept him from actually going into full Yiddish plots. Right, he didn't explode. He was about to, though.
Right,
that volcano was shaking, but it didn't actually erupt.
Right.
Okay, so nevertheless, Haman refrains himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife. Okay, I'm going to pause real quick and just point out how interesting is it that all the characters of this story, and I say it like that, like it's some Shakespearean play because I see that in my head, but I still see this as accurate history.
Right.
All of our characters have a female counterpart. Have you thought about that, Jeff?
Oh, yeah.
Haman has his wife.
No, I haven't really thought about that.
You have the king and Vashti, and then replaced by the queen, you have Mordecai with the queen.
Yeah.
Everybody has a female counterpart. We get to see the male and female perspective.
Yeah.
And who's behind your corner? Who's in your court? Who's giving you? Are you getting the advice of Job's wife?
Right.
Or are you getting the advice of like Abraham's wife? You know what I mean? What kind of wife are you possibly getting the advice of Abigail, the wife of Nabal? You see what I'm saying? Because we have examples throughout Scripture where you have the godly person being either or. It has nothing to do with gender. Right?
Yeah.
But I just thought it was interesting. I was going through a bunch of studies this week, and I said, "Oh my goodness!"
Do you know what her name means?
Female counterpart.
Do you know what her name? I just looked it up because I haven't looked it up before. Hang on. Wow, her name means misery. Of course, strange, dispersed inheritance. Woo! Anyway,
strange, dispersed inheritance and misery. That's all of Haman's household.
That is
by the end of this book. That
it is
strange inheritance. It was strange when he got it, and it was strangely dispersed, right?
Yeah,
and they're full of misery. Even when he's full of joy, he can't seem to hold on to it.
Right.
Yeah, we actually talked about the One Night with the King last week, Kathy. In case you missed that, we talked about that a little bit. It is a good one. There's some other Esther movies out there too. I can't remember what the other one was called, but there's a bunch of them. There's one called Time.
Go back and watch part 1. It's there. We mentioned I think we mentioned a lot of good ones. You brought up a couple I never heard of.
Oh, there's a bunch of them, man. And for anybody's interested, if you put it in the comments, not in the live chat, but you put it in the comments under the video, I'll take the time and go through it with my wife, and I'll put if you want adult movies, and I'm not saying adult as an adult content, but like you'll actually sit down and watch it, not child movies. But if you're looking for something for children, let us know. We've got a bunch of those too. My two littles have been watching everything about Esther that is child friendly for 2 weeks. Jeff, they know that. If they don't know that story in and out, then I've done everything I could to make them. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyways.
So now when I'm reading verse 10, nevertheless, Haman restrained himself when it came to his home. He sent for his friends and his wife, Misery.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead. I'm good, brother.
So Haman told them of the glory of his riches.
Yeah.
Right? And the multitude of his children. He's going over all of his blessings. And all the things wherein the king had promoted him and had advanced him above all the princes, which there's 127 of, mind you.
It says about that the king had praised. The king's praising him to his face about this. Yeah, right. Go ahead, brother. Yeah.
And the servants of the king. And so he's going over all these great things. I got to sit down with the queen at this intimate, banquet tea party, right? My daughter did tea parties the past couple of days.
Nice.
Yeah, we let her dress up as a princess. She's been doing bath bombs and face masks and wearing crowns that she's bejeweled and tea parties. And
I've got a little Earl Grey going on right here, brother. A little tea party myself. There we go.
Nice. Yeah. We did the real tea party. We did a fake one. We did a fake one while recording for the family for them doing the play. And then the reason why I was a little bit late tonight is we went to my favorite Middle Eastern place in Ohio.
Yeah.
It's the Jaffa Grill. And man, I told you about how we have Middle Eastern blood, how it's very important to me. I'm connected to Iran and Syria and Iraq and Armenia and things like that. And so when I think of Esther, I think this is one of the 3 times where the land of Persia, it gives me a reason to, while we're going through this, to eat Persian food in a biblical lens. And I really enjoyed doing that. Got to drink some Turkish coffee too, but don't tell the other Armenians that. Okay, so Haman told them of the glory of his riches. He's going over all of his blessings.
Yep.
And then verse 12 it says, Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in. So it was literally just them with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself. So it was just them and me, nobody else but me with them. And tomorrow I'm invited to her again with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Jeff, he didn't even notice originally. If nobody had pointed it out, would he have even noticed?
No.
And this is what's ruining it for him. This is what's ruining it for him. Jeff, he just went over all. Did you notice in the blessings there, not only is he talking about power and riches, his wealth and his authority and posterity and things like this, but he also mentioned his children. The multitude of his children. The multitude of his children are for nothing. If Mordecai the Jew, one guy out of the entire kingdom, Jeff.
Yeah, he's got everything going on, and this one guy messes everything up.
You know, and this is when we have to sit there and think, how much power are we giving that individual that we let their actions ruin blessings for us? Haman has all this going for him. It didn't have to go the way that it was going. You know?
That kind of goes back to, Esther being a form of, or a whole look at our prayer life. Yeshua says, look, when you come to the altar, if you have an ought against your brother, leave your gift there and go make it right. Go get forgiveness, because who's forgiveness for? It's not really for the other person. It's so it can cleanse our conscience, and we can not have trying to see Yah through all the blinders of offense that we have. So that's a good picture there, man.
Yeah. We got somebody in the comments. When I mentioned Job's wife, I was saying, who you have in your corner. There are those who give good advice and bad advice. I don't want it to seem like I was saying Job's wife gave good advice. That was the whole point of why I brought it up, that it was an opposing example. I don't know if that person caught that or not. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, I see that and I'm like, whoa, don't get me wrong here. Okay. Yeah. So, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate, and now it's Mordecai the Jew. It wasn't like that before. He didn't even know that he was a Jew. Yeah. There's phrases here that change throughout. We've pointed out a few of them last week. We talked about how it became Haman, the enemy of the Jews. It wasn't like that in the beginning. Right. Okay, so here's where it's about to start getting really interesting. Are you ready? Because I got some things, Jeff, that might be new to you, and if not, then I might ask you to act like it's new. But I think I got something new for you. Okay. Okay. Then said Zeresh, his wife, and all of his friends to him. So they're all on one accord on this. His wife and his friends. His corner is a very unwise counsel. The king had wise counsel. Esther's got wise counsel. Haman, unfortunately for him, has unwise counsel. And Scripture tells us about this in Psalms and in Proverbs about how important it is who you take counsel from, who you surround yourself with, how to look at those fruits and things like that. Bad fruit attracts bad fruit, but he's had chances before this. I'm going to say that this is not the first time he would have noticed that they're amping him up. And if he was seeking wisdom, he would sit back and say, is this really a good idea? You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so his wife and his friends, they say, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak to the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou and merrily with the king unto the banquet, and the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. Okay. This is my big pause. This is my first big pause. I know we're about an hour into this, and we've only done a chapter, but we have to do the big pause. Jeff, have you studied that word gallows?
I have not. Okay. But I did look up the 50 cubits. Do you know how tall that is?
About 75 feet. Depending on the cubit.
75 feet, man. That is why is it built so big? They want it to be a public spectacle. Now, I've not looked up.
So here's my thing, right? Okay, yeah. Well, let's go into that first, okay?
Yeah.
Perhaps Haman wants a public statement about Mordecai.
Yeah.
Because the humiliation of Mordecai or of Haman in Haman's eyes was a public statement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, he wants it high and above. He wants them raised up, right?
Yeah.
And, looking at, let me see if I can pull up my notes. I'll try not to take forever looking here, but there was somebody who wrote, okay, hold on. Okay, here. Yehuda Landi, in his Purim in the Persian Empire, points out that the citadel in Shushan sat on a mound that was 15 meters tall, which is about 50 feet, approximately 30 cubits. Haman's house was probably in the nearby city of Shushan, which was situated on the plain. A 50-cubit gallows would thus rise 20 cubits above the ground level of the citadel, allowing Haman to enjoy his banquet with the king while observing his enemy to be hanging from the gallows. Keep in mind, he's planning to have it built tonight, so he can make the request tomorrow before the banquet.
Yeah.
So he might actually have in his mind to be watching Mordecai hang while being during the second banquet. He wants that for entertainment. He wants to be able to look down from the balcony there, and see Mordecai. Okay, hold on, let me see. There was one other person I had for a quote here. I've got all kinds of notes, Jeff. I don't even know if we'll get through them all, but I got some crazy stuff here.
Yeah.
I had some fun. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh,
okay.
It's almost you get the thing where this is so large, so tall that everybody could see. It's almost kind of a picture of Yeshua being lifted up, on the cross.
Right. Well, Jeff, I've got some interesting things to say about that. It's funny you say all that. Okay. So here's the thing. I thought I had another quote. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm not seeing it because of all my things here. But are you ready for me to get crazy with it?
Man, let's do it. Rip it.
Okay, so
cut it up.
First problem. It probably wasn't what we think of when we think of the word gallows.
I think of hangman. We're playing hangman right here, right?
Right. The average American, and this is what we see in the English and the King James and maybe some other versions, depending on the version. Other versions say some different things. Some of them even say a pole and things like that. Okay. But when we look at the history of gallows in the terms of a platform where you stand that it drops underneath that you're hanging by rope,
right,
wasn't being used at this time. In fact, it seems that the average historian and scholar who studied this believes that they weren't invented yet. Now, when we say that, it's not like, oh man, those Persians weren't smart enough to figure out how to use rope to hang somebody. It's just the sense of this wasn't typically being used. Okay, are you ready to get weird with it, Jeff?
I'm ready.
I've got all kinds of stuff. This is about to get crazy, Jeff.
If I need to go get some tin foil, I'll go grab some tin foil.
If you got to do it, you might want to do it quick because we're about to have another crazy Ian theory. Okay,
let's do it, man.
Okay, so the average scholar who studies this out, and the historian who looks at history, typically says, yeah, no, it's not gallows like the Western mind's thinking. We're not looking at rope and stuff like that. And so they look at the tree, the word tree there, and you can get pole, and things like that. And when you look at the word hang there, you have the word hung and hang.
Yeah.
Let me pull up my notes before I stutter through all of this. Okay, I don't want to go over that just yet. Okay, yeah, perhaps making him humiliated because he wouldn't bow. Okay, talking about Darius. We'll get to that in a minute. All the different things. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, hold on. Okay, so yeah. In the book of Esther, much of the plot is set in motion by the hatred. Okay, let a gallows 50 cubits be made. Some of the more recent English translations offer something different. Like the TNIV, for example, reads have a pole set up, right, of 50 cubits. The NLT says something similar, set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall, right? At the end of okay, so the first question is the construction of gallows or a pole. Second was Haman hanged or impaled, right?
Oh, so man.
Yeah, and I thought you'd enjoy this because of the videos we've been doing with Jonah.
Right?
Because we were talking about this in our Jonah videos on your show. I'm telling you, there's some interesting things here. Okay, so the problem of the perspective of the modern Western reader is that hanging conjures a very clear image of the wooden gallows, crossbar, ropes, trapdoor, right? The condemned would dropped as pictured in the Western movies. Impaling probably likewise suggests that the image of someone thrust down upon a stake so that the stake goes through the body and the person's left to die in agony. So then they start to look at the language, okay? We're about to get interesting with it. In a woodenly literal fashion, you got the pun there, right? The Hebrew text says, make a high tree, a piece of wood, 50 cubits, and in the morning say to the king that they should hang Mordecai upon it. What we glean from this is that the tree is to provide for the hanging of Mordecai. Thus, the tree is not simply a tree, but wood, right? Tree, wood. We all know that in Scripture. We'll get there in a second. Okay, so the tree is not simply a tree, but at least a pole, perhaps more. But what about the hanging? So the word hang there is a synonym for suspend. So when we look for the word hang, that exact same word is used in 2 Samuel 18:10. It refers to Absalom hanging in an oak by his hair. That's actually being suspended. But that's not always the case, okay?
Right.
Obviously, Absalom wasn't impaled. But if we look at Song of Songs 4, verse 4, it says, her neck is likened to the Tower of David, on which hung, same word, 1,000 shields. They're not being suspended, but rather fixed.
Fixed.
Right? So you have the fastened, the fixed.
Okay.
So the hang does not necessarily indicate the manner of hanging, rather by suspended or being fastened, right? The more common use of the word in the Old Testament is to refer to a method of execution. So you have the Pharaoh's chief, baker was hung in Genesis 40, verse 22. The king of Ai is hanged in Joshua chapter 8, verse 29. Princes are hung by their hands, Lamentations 5:12. Again, however, it's not even clear on the exact method of execution. So you have the average common belief that it's a rope, right? But then you have the scholarly belief that it's impalement. Okay. So that's the average. Usually people who get into this, they go, okay, yeah, no, we know it's not gallows, it's impalement. Here we go, Jeff.
All right.
Usually the average person says it was Artaxerxes, and then the scholar says, no, it's Xerxes. And then Ian comes in and says, no, it's Darius, right?
Yeah, right.
The average person says it was a rope. The scholar says, no, it was impalement. Ian says, no, it was crucifixion.
Oh, wow, brother.
Fastened, hung up, right? Okay, now hear me out, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay. How many times do we see people arguing about Yeshua being crucified because they say, no, it was hung on a tree? There are people who literally show a picture of Yeshua being hung with a rope because they see hung on a tree and they say, what could that possibly mean? You don't know your scriptures.
It's fastened.
And they say there's no word cross, but there is the word crucifixion. We don't have crucifixion. Yes, we do. We have the Roman records. We can go back and forth all day, right, Jeff? We can fight that fight if we want to.
Yeah.
So we have that same terminology with Yeshua hung on a tree. We also have being lifted up on like a banner on a pole, right? So then you have the people who say, no, Yeshua had his arms up like this and the feet down like that, but then it doesn't work when you look at the nail count. It doesn't work with the crucifixion records of the Romans. It doesn't work when you have the camp lining of Israel being the shape of a tav, of a T, of a cross, of the X, rather than a single pole.
It doesn't work with the Mithra worshiping Romans who crucified them on a cross that was, to their god Mithra. I mean, can we just say that? I mean, that's hello.
So get this, Jeff.
They're pagans.
So get this, Jeff. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw it out there.
Wow.
That it was crucifixion.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me give you a couple more notes here, and then I'm going to start throwing some things that I think you're going to have a lot of fun with. And anybody who watched the last video, you're going to see a little bit more of why I'm saying crucifixion. I'm not saying it absolutely was. I'm just saying that's where I'm leaning. That's where I'm convinced at the moment. That's my crazy Ian theory. I don't know anybody else who has said this.
Kathy Wynn right now is crucifying her clothes as she's listening. Go ahead.
Oh, man. Okay, so in the work of the Greek historian Herodotus, which interestingly enough we brought up in the last one, impalement is regular presented as a Persian punishment, right? And this is one of the reasons why they say it had to be impalement. It was common for that time period. And we see that just like with Jonah, with the Assyrian and the Babylonian and the Persian empires, impalement was one of the preferred routes to go. Okay.
Right.
And I did look it up, and interestingly enough, believe it or not, typically impaling would be 50 to 75 feet tall for a pole, because I wanted to see if that was a common height, because I originally looked up 75-foot gallows. Was that common for that time period? Come to find out, gallows weren't common at all at that time period.
Right.
So then I had to go into all this kind of crazy stuff. Okay, so that was actually the case. 75-foot impalement was a common thing, because I'm thinking that's a really tall pole to put a body on. Doesn't it slide down? I'm thinking all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
Okay. Given the setting of Esther, it seems likely that the manner of punishment for Haman was in fact impalement, says Herodotus, right? In other words, a 50-cubit tree built by Haman was intended to display his body impaled in such a way that no one could avoid seeing it. As it turned out, however, it's Haman that goes on it, right? Okay. Let me get rid of these notes.
While you're getting back to your notes there, one thing that could be used in favor of impalement, and I'm way open to the crucifixion, but we believe that Esther happened roughly the late 600s, the early 600s, almost to 500s BC, because we're thinking Darius the First. The Ninevites had perfected impaling. That was one of the things that they were known for. And Jonah was 770 BC. That was at least 150, almost 200 years before this story in Esther happened. Yep. And so we know the technology was there for impalement. But man, what about crucifixion? Wow, this is. Okay, hang on. Whoa. One thing. All right, one thing. Man,
I'm still deleting stuff. Go for it.
Yeah. So in the scripture, I forget where in the Tanakh, actually in the Torah, but it talks about cursed is he who's hung on a tree.
I was gonna get there, Jeff. That was one of my notes.
Ugh!
Oh, Jeff, you're always biting at the bit here. Okay,
Ready to go, man. This is good stuff. No one thinks about crucifixion when we talk about Esther. This is amazing, man.
Like I said, in all my studies, I haven't seen anybody, and I've still got some things here to say, but I don't know if anybody who says crucifixion. In all my stuff, everybody was on this.
I've never heard that.
All the stuff I looked up, and I looked up a lot of stuff. You can ask my wife. She said that I was the reason why the computer crashed because I had like 37 tabs up or something, and that was just the stuff that I found good stuff in. And I was highlighting notes from everything because 90% of the article was garbage or just common, but there'd be 2 sentences where I was like, man, that's beautiful. And nobody was saying crucifixion. And I find that astounding, just like the Darius thing. I kept looking up information about the Xerxes thing, and they kept saying, well, look at Darius. And I'm like, why are you looking at Darius if you think it's Xerxes, but everything in Darius fits? Okay,
absolutely.
So the word here in Hebrew, for anybody wondering, is etz, which is literally a tree. And that's why there's that whole confusion of tree, wood, what kind of, we see the source there, but what kind of actual thing, everybody's pretty much convinced it wasn't a gallows. Is it possible? Sure, but probably not the case. So you're down to impalement. Okay, so in all my notes, right, check this out. The Greek historian Herodotus, again, he's just one of our sub things of this study, I guess, records that the Persian king Darius, the father of Ahasuerus or Xerxes, but really Xerxes, because I would say Ahasuerus, which means mighty king. And if Darius was known as Darius the Great, does that not further... I just had to say it, okay? I don't know if I said that last week or not.
Right.
It hit me. I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, he was known as Darius the Great. He was literally known as Great Darius. And then you have this title of Great King. That's what Ahasuerus means, is Great King, Mighty King.
Right.
But anyways, okay, so Herodotus records that the Persian king Darius, the dad of Xerxes, impaled about 3,000 men from the city of Babylon, okay? And if you want to know the source there, you just look up the book called Histories. Right. You're going to be looking at sections 3.159 or section 1.128, 3.132, and then 6-30, right? So those are the chapters and your little subsections there. Okay, Darius the Great himself describes 4 different leaders in the same time period of what it looks like of Esther. I think after the book of Esther, but during Esther's lifetime, where he impaled rebellions, and he had 4 leaders. And I'm wondering if Haman was actually in either following that or actually one of those names there. I'm looking at the names, and none of them look like Haman, but we're going off of what Scripture's showing us from a Hebrew viewpoint of what's going on. So, okay. We have the Assyrian king Sennacherib doing impaling and stuff like that. Me trying to prove all the more that impaling was common back then, right? And Sennacherib was of Persia. Okay, hold on. I had something here about... Okay, where was it at here?
Do you have anything... I just looked some stuff up. I did kind of a quick.
Are you about to talk about the number 50?
No, I'm looking at an article here on Tor.com, thetor.com. Is that part of your notes?
I don't know, dude. I had like so many websites. It's not even funny.
Can I share this just real quick while we're looking?
Real quick.
All right, real quick. Let me share screen. Don't show that again. All right, here we go. Let me know when you get that popped up. I'm gonna make it big so everybody can see. Let me know when I'm popped up.
Okay. Oh, I found it. All right, Jeff, I'm ready whenever you are.
Yeah, throw it up there real quick.
Did you already share it? Because if you didn't share it, you can share it real quick.
I'm trying to share it.
I have to click on it. I'm sorry, I was reading. Okay, let me show that. Oh snap! Did somebody put Haman on a cross?
So check this out. So I just looked this up. I've never heard this until tonight.
I've never seen it or heard it either.
So I looked it up, and it says the Septuagint translates this command about Haman to crucify him upon it from the Greek word Satoro. Similarly, the Latin Vulgate refers to the pole upon which Haman was and his sons were hung, meaning the cross. All right, now check this out. So here's a picture of it. This is the death of Haman, anonymous artist. This is around the, I think, the 15th century. It's in the Museum Royal Library in The Hague. All right, now check this out. In the retelling of the story, Josephus tells it. He writes about it as a crucifixion, right here. Bam. And when the eunuch, accused Haman, saying that he had found a cross in his house prepared for Mordecai, and the cross. He goes on, man, this is wow. Check this out, dude. That's all I wanted to show. And just leaving you with this picture right here.
That's crazy, Jeff. So when I said that I hadn't seen it, I literally meant I really thought I was the only crazy person that I was aware of up till right now. I really thought, man, I gotta be the only one.
If you look in the private chat, I sent the link to you. If you want to pop that link in the
I'll do that real quick.
chat that way everybody else can see. And I'll let me see. Let me pull this. I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Copy this. Copy link.
Yeah.
Bear with me. You all know I'm really stinky with technology. Anybody who's watched more than a video of me is probably impressed that I actually figured out how to do this right now, because normally I don't know how to do these things. Okay, let's get rid of the TV background there. I remember to change the background before we went on the show tonight. Did you notice that? It was about to be one of the other show's backgrounds. Okay, are you guys ready? I'm going to leave that up for 2 seconds while I go over this note. Okay, so interestingly enough, Jeff, I decided to look at the torture and killing methods of Persia of that time period, dating from before Darius to even after Darius, okay? So anybody who's squeamish, maybe now's the time to pause or just, turn mute or whatever. I'm probably going to go on this for about a couple minutes. I'm not going to go into gory details, but I know my mom said that I should have warned her about last one. She was like, man, she's like, I don't know if I'm just because I'm getting older or what, but some of the things you said in the last Esther video was just outright disgusting about stuff. And I was like, we didn't even go into it. I just barely mentioned it. Like, we're not, so anybody who's easily squeamish, mom, if you're listening, whatever, maybe mute it for 2 minutes here. Okay, so interestingly enough, Darius was the one that kept popping up the most. And interestingly enough, Darius was the king. I wasn't looking for it to be Darius. I was just looking at Persian Empire stuff. I wanted to see overall grand scheme, see if there's an evolution or de-evolution of how they did things, if they got, meaner or grosser, or if they got more complicated or faster with things. I wanted to see if I could, catch some things, get an idea of the Persian Empire. And apparently over and over, one of the themes that kept popping up was that Darius was known for rewarding greatly and executing greatly. And his son Xerxes was not. Interestingly enough, through the book of Esther, we see multiple times of him rewarding greatly and punishing greatly. And yet Xerxes was not known for this. Oh, I guess it was the Jonah video, not when we were talking about Nineveh. It was the Jonah video. Anybody who's not aware, if you send me that link, Jeff, or if somebody puts it in the chat, Jason, if you're on it, we've been doing Jonah over at Jeff's ministries while doing Esther over here. So we've been doing two big studies simultaneously, what's been having our minds racked and crazy. And I think we're a bit kooky for doing it, but
no, I love it, man.
It's been showing us. It's been showing us. Jeff and I said that if we were to ever share a stage and do a presentation in person at like a conference or something, it's quite possible that Jeff and I would present fight or flight. Are you Jonah or are you Hadassah? And because there's so much comparison that we see, we started taking notes about how you can compare the two. Fight or flight was actually Miranda's title there. And I just thought that was brilliant, Jeff's wife. Okay, so interestingly enough, Darius, when researching Persian tortures, was known for being firm with his punishments as well as his rewards. Ancient Persia has some very disturbing and creative tortures from before, during, and after Esther's time, right? So I think the most disturbing thing I saw, well, one of the most disturbing, they skinned a Persian judge, Sisymanus, to make a chair out of his skin after he was dead, mind you, for his predecessor, which ended up being his son, to sit in that chair to make sure that there would not be a duplication of the betrayal, which was the receiving of a bribe in that position, right? So sitting in that chair would remind you not to do that. King Darius was the king at that time, by the way. You had the annual slaughter of the Magi. right? Every year they would actually hold an event to kill any of the magi that were out in the open. And we talked about this last Esther's video. We talked a little bit about the pretender king that the magi had set up that said that they were a son of Cyrus the Great, but ended up not being. And because of that, the magi had to be real careful with claiming anybody to be a king. Well, Jeff, I've told you this before privately. I don't know if I've done it in video, but I have many reasons to say that I believe it was Persian magi that announced and recognized Yeshua, the King of Kings.
Right.
And so, and we're talking thousands of years later, but these are from the same group. Okay.
Right.
And so if you come from a group that was known for being slaughtered annually, as your town's national festival is to kill your people once a year if they're out and about,
right?
Because they announced a false king, a great pretender, going to recognize Yeshua as the King of Kings and announcing that, you know what I mean? And they went to Herod. They didn't go back to Herod, but originally they went to Herod to ask him where it was at. I mean, they had to really make sure. They had to know that Yeshua was going to be a king before they actually went on that adventure. I'm just saying, it shows all the more that these guys really knew what they were talking about. And I actually found another example that represents that. They said, after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire upon Alexander's conquest, the Iranian power soon recovered. The Hellenistic successor state of the Seleucids was followed by the Parthians, right? Who at the height of their power covered all of Iran and much of the Middle East and even Central Asia. They moved their capital from Hectampolis in Khorasan to Ecbatana, Hamadan, okay, in 139 BCE. Zoroastrianism became the official religion again, but especially Jews living there in the Parthian Empire were in peace. The Arsacids' religious tolerance was legendary. Special appearance of Persian Parthian dignitaries in Jerusalem is documented in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. Magi, a priest cast since the time of Medes, asked Herod, since the time of Medes. See what I'm saying? It's the same group. It is said that they arrived from the central Iranian oasis Kashan. They were later warned in the dreams, interpretation of the dreams, that were outspoken talent of all magi, that Herod was deadly intentions with regard to a possible competitor. So they didn't go back. They moved forward and they went back to Persia. But I just wanted to point out that there was yet again another note proving, and I've got other sources that talk about that.
Ian, we have a request from Patricia wanting to know what source you're reading from, quoted that you just quoted.
Oh, I thought I just gave it. I just deleted it. All right, put it in the comments underneath, and I'll refine that. But they go on to say, an interesting footnote, one should mention Daniel at Nebuchadnezzar's court in Babylon was considered a magi as well. But yeah, I deleted it right before you said that.
Right. That's okay, brother.
I literally just deleted.
That's all right.
I really thought I said it in the beginning. I guess I didn't. But I do have other sources as well. For anybody who's interested, we can possibly go into that sometime. There's multiple sources I have. But yeah, that was from a website that talks about the Magi of Matthew 2 being connected to the Persian Magi. Remember, they were considered wise men from the East, the Far East, it says.
Right.
But there's historical secular records that point to them being Persians, which again sticks out to me because of any connection to Iran and Persia in general is important to me personally for my family. Okay, so you have the annual slaughter of the Magi after the great pretender to the throne. Great pretender being a shout out to the Scottish great pretender king, for anybody who knows what I'm talking about, which we hinted at in the first video, which happened after Cyrus the Great, but prior to Darius, right? So this is before Darius, right? Okay. Yeah, I mentioned the King of Kings. Okay, we revolted against the king. Okay. Okay. When the people revolted against King Darius, this is King Darius, he made sure everyone knew what would happen if they tortured against him. So one of the things he would do for rebel leaders, he would cut off their noses, ears, and tongues, plucked out one of each of their eyes, but he wouldn't kill them yet. Then the rebel leaders were chained and bound to the front gate of his castle, so everyone who would walk by would see their mutilated bodies, chained up and bound, right? Lieutenants, meanwhile, were decapitated. They weren't tortured in the same way. And their heads were hung up from the top of the city citadel, high up on a pole, right?
Yeah.
They were left there for weeks, being jeered and beaten by everyone who walked by, back to the tortured people, staring at the remnants of their friends and suffering in excruciating pain. Then when they couldn't handle anymore, they were allowed to die, right? The victims wouldn't actually die, but they'd go through the agony of death 3 times through. When a eunuch angered the wife of Cyrus the Great, right? Oh, no, okay, so I'm sorry. I'm mixing 2 things here. So when they couldn't take it anymore after being hung up, they would die. That was during King Darius.
Right.
Now let's go to Cyrus, which is a little bit before.
Right.
The victims wouldn't actually die, but they'd go through agony of death 3 times if they personally upset the king enough. When a eunuch angered the wife of Cyrus the Great, for example, she first had his eyes pulled out of his head. Then you have the eye gouging again. Mm. Then once he would recover, they flayed him again, which is again common for Assyrians, Babylonians, and Persians.
Right.
Then they nurse him back to health. before finally crucifying him.
Wow. And it says crucify.
It says crucifying them.
Wow.
Right? Apparently, this was upheld even during the time of Darius. The Persians also kept a 23-meter tall, also known as a 75-foot tower,
Right.
that was filled with nothing but ashes and wheels. They would have a sliding platform, and they would slide down, and the ashes would suffocate while they had people outside turning the wheels.
Right.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up, and there's some other things too. They'd pour gold down their throat and all kinds of other weird stuff. They had the hollowed out log. They'd cover it in honey, and they'd have the insects eat them, all kinds of weird things.
Right.
But again, a lot of these, I think even the hollowed out log, if I remember correctly, was supposed to be 75 feet high. They had something about 75 feet high was seen above all. We have this tower was 75 feet high. The crucifixions would often be 70 to 75 feet high, as well as the poles, the stakes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in there. It looks to me like the idea here is that Haman wants to crucify Mordecai. It is possible that is an impalement. I'm not going to say that it wasn't. It's possible. I think it's crucifixion. Okay, I'm done with the disgusting stuff. Now on to the weird things and some things that we didn't mention last video. All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So we talked about the number 50 there, right? The 50 cubits. The cubits was their measurement. What's important about the number 50 in this time period? Do you know what I'm getting at? I thought this might have skipped you. You guys ready for this?
I'm ready, brother.
Are you ready? When was the edict made? When did Haman make the decree to have the information put out for the Jews to be told? When was it, Jeff?
Oh, are you saying this was made on a Shavuot?
Listen, Jeff.
Come on.
Listen.
Are you saying
Jeff?
that?
Listen, Jeff. Listen.
Come on.
Listen, Jeff. 13th of Nisan, the night before Passover, Haman makes the decree for the Jews to be killed. Remember when we read last week, it said that all of Shushan, the king and Haman sit down to drink, but all of Shushan is perplexed. The Jews were getting ready to get ready. They were getting ready for the preparation day for Passover.
Wow.
It was the evening before they start preparing. They had already picked out their lamb, Jeff, because the 10th of Nisan is the 10th of Aviv.
It's coming up.
Would have been, they would have already had it chosen. The night before Passover is when the decree is made. And if you remember last video, I said that when he made the decree, Haman said, make haste so that it goes through all the provinces right now. And Mordecai sees it the next day, right? So on Passover, this decree is being made. Esther makes the point to do the 3-day fast. Okay, now.
Wow.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
He's asking for 50 cubits, okay? It's been a little time, and we're gonna see the next timing clue, but this is the night before he's going for the second day for the banquet, which lands on the 6th of Sivan, which would have been Shavuot.
Shavuot, wow.
It would have been Shavuot. So the idea here, Jeff, is that the decree was made for the time of Passover.
Yep.
And Mordecai was to be either impaled, hung, or crucified on Shavuot. What is Haman saying here? They're very familiar with the Jews. They've been there for over a century, right?
Yeah.
I mean, close to, right?
He's trying to desecrate both of these holidays.
And the number 50 there, the 50 days.
Right.
And he's representing that with the 50 cubits. Well, you know what I think is being symbolized here? Haman is telling the Jew, this is what you and your people, this is a foreshadowing. This is what you have to look forward to. You want to celebrate your Passover, your paycheck. You want to celebrate Shavuot. But what you're really going to do, but Jeff, Shavuot and Pentecost, we're looking, or Shavuot and Passover, we're looking at times of deliverance.
Yes.
We're looking at times of deliverance and restoration of Yah's people, Jeff.
Yes. Yeah.
Jeff, we have people, we have the Israelites coming out of bondage and being shown the ways of Yah, right?
Yep.
And yet again, here we see another parallel of coming out of the bondage and being rescued and delivered from a untimely death. So I thought that possibly you might have missed that, and I didn't catch it.
I did. I absolutely did.
I said, "Oh my goodness, Shavuot! Can you believe it?"
Well, okay. Hey, so what's ringing in my ear though is also this for present day. All right. Okay. We have Satanists, we have witches, we have all this stuff that try to desecrate our holy days, right? That Yah has given us, and they try to do a black Sabbath. They try to do, all these things they try to go against and try to have these negative energies and these negative prayers and all this kind of stuff. But praise Yah, Yah's always able to go in and turn those things around. Man, what's the scripture say? The enemy tries to lay a trap and he falls in it himself.
Yeah.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Let the gin and the snare and the trap be for him that he had set for others, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's good, brother.
Did you know it was second? Did you know that Tower of Ash, by the way, is in Second Maccabees? It talks about the Jewish priests that were killed by the Persians in the Tower of Ashes.
I did not. I didn't put that together, but I do remember the tower. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know you like to read the Maccabees and stuff, so I saw that and I thought you'd really like that.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. So 6th of Sivan, which would have been Shavuot, which would have been the day that Mordecai would have been.
That's the day of Pentecost for you guys in Karnak, Texas. Hallelujah. There we go. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. You ready? Well, yeah. Let's just go over what you already hinted at, since you already brought it up anyhow, real quick. Yeah. Okay.
Man,
his 50 days later. It would have been 50 days later, like the 50 cubits. 50 days after he made the decree.
Right.
So okay. Haman appears to have built the wooden scaffolding for 2 reasons. One, the hanging of wood would represent Mordecai as a cursed man in Jewish law. Deuteronomy 21, verse 22, cursed is the man, right? Secondly, the timing, in addition to the height of the scaffolding, appeared to the corresponding 50 days after Passover, right? Because this was after the edict.
Yeah.
So you have the 50 days, 50 cubits. Okay. So the death of Mordecai was to be the first fruits, Jeff, of what was to come for all the Jews. This was the moment not to be the time of gladness and celebration as what the Feast of Weeks and the Festival of First Fruits is supposed to be about.
Right.
It's now trying to be renamed as a time of death and sorrow. I wanted to get that first fruits in there. Okay. The surprise proclamation of the eve of the Passover that, every complains to his wife. Okay. Okay. Cursed is the man. Deuteronomy 12. Why do I have this in there twice? Okay. Critical juncture. Okay. After 3 days. Okay. Yeah, would have been Shavuot. Already have that as well. Sorry for repeating. Okay. Okay, let's move forward, and then I'll bring up the next note in the next forward thing here. Okay. So chapter 6 here. That night the king couldn't sleep. He commands to bring the book of records of the Chronicles, and they were to read before the king. We actually see this, I think, in Chronicles as well. Kings wouldn't be able to sleep, so they would have the Chronicles read before them, and this is when sometimes they'd catch things. And it was found written, right? So he's sitting there trying to go to sleep, Jeff.
Yeah.
What a great way to try to go to sleep. Have somebody read the journal, the archives, the chronicles. Yeah. What's been going on? You got to think this is like a true leader. Going over the taxes and the rules and the things, and it's putting that in your mind. And okay, I got to do this tomorrow. We need to remember this. I got that done. Okay, while also trying to rest because it is kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
And it was found written that Mordecai had told the Bigthana of Teresh and 2 of the king chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on the king, right? King Darius, I would say, Ahasuerus.
Right.
And the king said, what honor and dignity has been done to Mordecai, right? This is, the king can't sleep, Jeff. This is the same time as Haman's thing has either been built or is being built simultaneously here.
Right.
Right. Haman is getting ready to kill Mordecai, and the king is like, what did we ever do to honor and to show dignity to dignify Mordecai for this? And the king's servants that said to him, there's been nothing done for him. And the king said, who's in the court right now? Which is Haman, right? Which means that it was already built. Like he made the order. He saw them building it. It doesn't take long to build a Tav, right?
Yeah, right.
So Haman was coming to the outward court of the king's house to speak to the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he prepared for him. He's coming in there to say it, which means it's been built, as it seems to me, and he sees that it's a stable structure. He believes it's going to work for the purpose. He's ready to go.
Brother, I know you're trying to run through this, but I got to hit verse 1. Okay, can I hit verse 1 just real quick? During that night, the king could not sleep. How often do we find ourselves in that same spot and we think, man, it's because of this reason, it's because of this reason. You know what? How about it's because God is trying to show you something important and you may not even think it's important, right? Hey, let's just go through these chronicles. I need something boring. I need something boring to put me to sleep or whatever. But God is moving those chess pieces. God is moving those things around. And this is all playing into those strategies, those tactics that God has put into place. And this is moving to a place to set this all up. If he had not had trouble sleeping that night, he wouldn't have read about Mordecai. He wouldn't have. And all of these things are promptings and just gentle pushes. The king still has free will. The king can still do what he wants to do. These are just things that the Father does to all of us. He puts things before our eyes. And how do we respond? How do we react to everything that's coming upon our path? We're supposed to receive things with thanksgiving. We're supposed to look at things and say, you know what? This is in my life. We've got Nate fired for truth in the audience tonight. Hallelujah. Nate was fired for truth, and God used what would look like in the natural as something negative, and he turned it around and just boom, exploded his ministry. The same thing is going on here tonight with the king. He couldn't sleep. He's like, man, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's too much pizza. I don't know. And bam, he is given some things, some key things, some little seeds, and he allows them to move, and he just follows through. He doesn't even know he's being led by the Spirit, but he's following the Spirit right there. So I can't get past verse 1. During that night, the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles to be brought. Did he know that he was being led by God right then? Probably not, right? But he was. And how often, again, I try to bring things back to us, how often we need to listen to that still small voice. We need to listen to what God is trying to move us to do. And you're not looking for that great big, Jeff, you need to do this. It's not going to be like that, right? God's just going to move through us. Maybe sometimes God speaks to me through songs, through titles of songs or different things like that. And I'll hear things and I'm like, wow, that's from God. God is moving. He's trying to get my attention on something. We need to be watching for signs. And that's all I want to say with that.
Or simply not dismissing and pushing it off and assuming it's nothing. Like you said, the king didn't know here. This is not the same situation. It reminds me of, but it's not the same situation as the king looking for loopholes in the law to get Daniel out of that situation there, right? But It is very interesting that we see in Daniel and in those king times, and Daniel was for a different Darius. So like we said, there's multiple Dariuses, right?
Right.
Daniel was before the time of Esther. And so the king that was trying to get him out of that was a different king. But here's the thing, Jeff. We saw that in Daniel, the king of Persia, that the rules of Persia do not change. And I want to hint for that now, because we see that being reiterated here, that is still the same case. The king doesn't do away with this decree. He just makes an addition. He makes an annexation. He makes well, the Jews can fight back. This is not, he didn't undo it, because you can't undo Persian law once it's been sealed by the king's ring. So I think that's kind of neat that, again, we see Daniel and Esther backing each other up, supporting each other. You see some parallels, but you also see some oppositions in the parallels, right? Okay. So, but yeah, he couldn't fall asleep. Yeah. And he, like you said, cool. He probably didn't know why, but what needed to happen, Yah made another move on the chessboard, like you said. I love it, man. Yeah, the strategy's here, and it's tactic. It's a tactic. It's a timing, precise strategy move, right? And that's why I use the word tactic here. Okay, so Mordecai's coming in, or Haman's coming in to talk about the crucifixion or the impalement, and the king is wanting to honor Mordecai. So he calls Haman in. The king's servant says, "Behold, Haman stands in the court. Let him come in." So Haman comes in. The king says to him, "What shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor?"
Oh, yeah.
Okay, remember how we talked about how Esther might have been thrown off when she was offered up to half the kingdom?
Right.
Haman's coming in here with his agenda, his message, and he got thrown off by the poke in the flesh, and now all of a sudden he's distracted. Yeah. Because he didn't stick to his method here. Yeah. What should be done to the man that the king delights and has delights to honor? Now, Haman thinks in his heart, to whom would the king delight to honor more than me? I'm the one that was brought to the special intimate situation. So Haman says to the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let the royal pair be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rides upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. Yep. And let this apparel, the robe and the crown and the ring and the horse, be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes. Yep. And that they may array the man with all whom the king delights to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. Okay? Yeah. Then the king says to Haman, make haste. Remember we said before, make haste. He said, tell Haman to make haste and do as Esther says, right? Yeah. Yep. And take the apparel that you spoke of and the horse that you said, and do so to Mordecai the Jew that sits at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that you've spoken. Do everything you said, right?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine I mean, Mordecai is just like, man, I got this. I'm making my own deal right now. And he hears the king say, quickly take this apparel, make haste. And then he hears Mordecai's name. Just falls over dead, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Oh,
wait, but I was gonna suggest we kill him tomorrow.
right.
Okay. But and he was thinking that it was gonna be to him, and he's sitting there going, "You want to honor?" I didn't even know Mordecai was on your radar.
Yeah.
He's on my radar. But remember, when Haman came to the king, he said there are those who don't follow your laws. He didn't say there is one at the gate who refuses to bow to me. And we talked about why that wasn't the situation.
Right.
So Haman is shook, right? I mean, this is the exact opposite of what he was expecting. Remember, he was on his high horse, and now he's So he gets told, all right, so then took Haman the apparel on the horse and arrayed Mordecai. This would be the next day, right?
Oh.
And brought him on horseback through the street of the city and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delights to honor. And then Mordecai came again to the king's gate. He returned back to his position. He went back to his post like a true soldier. Yep. But then Haman hastened to his house mourning, having his head covered, right?
Oh.
Okay. And we're about to do the banquet here. Okay, real quick. We got to do this now.
Yeah.
This is Shavuot.
Uh-huh.
This is Shavuot, Jeff. Did we forget? This is Shavuot.
Wow.
What does Deuteronomy 16:10 through 11 and 26 verses 16 and 19 tell us about how we should treat Shavuot, how we should be perceived in the eyes of the nations who were enemies of the Jews surrounding them? What does it say about being full of joy and being a public statement and parading through in the midst of the eyes of the nations, Jeff, in Deuteronomy chapter 16 and chapter 26. Okay.
Wow.
So you've got a fulfillment of the commandment of God of how to treat. Yes, I was drinking coffee. For the person who's asking, I'm actually out of coffee. I'm about to go get some here in a second. No, it's never decaf. Never decaf. never decaf. Sometimes with some honey, but not decaf. Yes, usually I'll do coffee or tea, but right now it's coffee. Yeah. I had Turkish coffee before too, so I am a little extra amped. I mean, we're getting into this, right?
That's good stuff.
Look, the commandments of Yah are being being carried out.
Yeah.
Through the will of Yah, by Yah. Jeff, I don't know about you, but especially when I first started doing this quadruple. Yeah, I think I've had about 6 espressos today, Jason. All right. So anyways, they're saying I'm a bit worked up.
That's all right, brother.
Where was I getting at? I've had experiences. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I've had experiences, especially when I first started doing this walk, where like when I first started to do Passover and things like this, my wife and I were trying to figure out what to do. Right. Yeah. You know a little bit of my testimony. You know that the first time we kept Passover, we had only just started our walk 2 weeks prior. We had just started hearing from God. We had just been told to do Passover.
Right.
Not commanded, but saying, hey, you get to do this. And we didn't know anybody that was doing it.
Right.
We had no clue. And things would fall into place for us, Jeff. Even with this Purim, interestingly enough. My wife and I took the children last weekend to a maple syrup farm because they had a free tour and we saw it as a homeschooling opportunity. Okay.
Right.
Now Purim is not a holy day that's commanded by Yah. So I'm not saying that is all that important, everything like this, but I still find this interesting.
Yeah.
We went and got maple syrup, everything. I told my wife, let's try to be careful spending money. She came back with 3 bags of maple syrup cotton candy, 2 bags of maple syrup popcorn. She got maple syrup cream, maple syrup coffee, freaking maple syrup candies. I can't remember what else. It was maple syrup everything. We bought everything they own, at least 1 or 2 of everything, basically. We get back and we start going through our Jewish books and our Jewish, right? Which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if you're not, check it out. We went through our Jewish books, which is a cookbook that goes over Jewish stuff. We were going through Alan Aguirre's feast stuff. If you guys don't know about that, hit me up and we'll send you some links. Alan Aguirre's how to he's got suggestions on how to view the feast, how to keep the feast, how to observe them, what to do with your family, things to do with your children and stuff. Alan is awesome. If you want to know stuff about Passover, put it in the comments. Watch Women on the Vine. We're going to be going over Passover. Yah willing, Jeff's going to join me, and we're going to hit the first 14 chapters of Exodus hard for a few weeks. We're going to really hit it hard, so that by the time it's Passover, you're going to know more than what you need to know or ever will want to know about Passover. That's the idea. Yeah. But anyways, we get back and we're going through all our Jewish books, and they're talking about how The average Orthodox Jew likes maple syrup, candies, and desserts for Purim. We didn't know that.
Wow.
8 years we've been doing this, and we've never noticed
Yeah.
that before. And we had just bought off. So I'm just saying that's small and it's kind of stupid. It's not the same as Shavuot and things like that. But I'm just saying, I don't know about you, but I've had experiences where even when you don't have the control, Mordecai didn't have the control here. Mordecai's got every reason to be sad and mourning or simply just trying to trust in prayer. You don't see them having reason to be joyful. And Yah is saying, you will be joyful on my day.
Right.
And I'm going to put you on the king's horse, wearing the king's robe. Look what's being said, Jeff. This is what is done to the man that the king delights and honors.
Yeah.
What king are we talking about here? We know the king that Haman is talking about to the person, but what is the spiritual? What are the Jews hearing?
Right. Right.
This is the man whom the king delights and honors, the man who sits at the gate of the king and bows at no man's feet.
Oh, this is good, brother.
Jeff, on Shavuot.
On Shavuot.
Wearing royal apparel. Being shown to physically be in a spiritual position, covered and wearing the physical and spiritual apparel, garments of what that time period calls for, according to Yah's timeline and calendar. Right. Yeah. Watchman woman, put it in the comments under the video, not in the live chat. I'll forget, but put in the comments, and I'll hit you with all kinds of Passover stuff. I love Passover. Yeah. Okay. So I had to get that in there. I also have to mention real quick, it reminds me of Yeshua riding on the donkey. You have this parading. And I got to ask you, Jeff, since we didn't bring it up last week. Yeah. Do you think in that 180-day feast and in that 7-day feast, there was a parade?
Oh, sure.
You know, because, I mean, you see a parade here. He's showing a spectacle of all of his riches.
Oh, gosh, I would think so, yeah.
And, you know, so I'm just saying it's good to get that picture. You and I like to get that mental picture of the environment. Right. I'm talking elephants with flowers and
they're all, everything's all dolled up. Right,
dude, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you got anything, or can we move forward?
Let's go, man. Shake and bake.
Okay. Mordecai came again to the king's gate. He goes back to his post where he belongs. He shows a purposefulness, and he shows that he's a good soldier, and he goes back to his post. Haman hastes to his house. Mourning, having his head covered. Right. Yeah. He is just bewildered and dumbfounded and confused and sad, depressed. Haman tells his wife Zeresh and all his friends that everything that had happened, and then he
goes and tells Misery and all his friends.
And Misery and its company. Misery's company.
Right. There we go.
Right. So he goes and tells Misery and his company, his wise men, right? They're the wise men in his eyes, his counsel. Yeah. And his friends and his wife say what to him? If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, which they knew, before whom thou hast begun to fall, because they know it's Shavuot. They knew that it was Passover. They know it's Shavuot. They know what's happening here, Jeff. Right. And they say they look at these things, and remember when they casted lots. The whole reason why we call it Purim.
Yeah, because they cast lots.
Because they believe in supernatural forces.
Right.
His wife and his friends see these things, and they go, "You're not going to prevail against them. You're going to fall. This is it." Yeah. Everything that you've done is going against you. Your plans are going. This plots is turning into a plots with a Z. This is turned from a plot to a plots of a putz.
Right. It's going kaputs.
Yeah. It's going. Yeah. Right. We got to get some Yiddish in there. We have to do it.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. And while yet they were talking with him came the king's chamberlain. So while he's talking to them about this, and they hasted, there's that fast again. Speed. Boom. 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 And they bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. Okay. All right, I want to point something out before we go into chapter 7.
All right, brother.
In the beginning of Esther, the time period was kept in months.
Right.
And it went from months to weeks. It went from weeks to days. And from days to hours and time of days. Think about it, Jeff. We have the 180 days, half of a year.
Right.
And then you have the week. Then you have, you're given 11 months. Yeah. Right. But then it's cut down to 50 days, months to days. Right. Yep. Right. Jeff, you've got the 3 days of fasting. Wow. Then 3 cuts down into 2 banquets for the 2 requests, which is done on one thing. Right. But then you have the king can't sleep at night. And now everything is speeding up. It's all contracting. These are like the birth pains. The contractions are getting more severe. The time between the gaps are lessening. Right. And now we're going from an hourly update, right? The king can't sleep, and then Haman is brought in, and then the next morning, you're talking just a matter of hours. Take him out, put him on the donkey. He comes back, as he's telling his wife and his friends, come back to the banquet, matter
Yep.
of hours, Jeff. It's all coming
Gotta
back.
go
I'm
back.
just saying these are things we got to look at here, right?
Wow.
Just like we're comparing. Vashti was not called, or was called and didn't come.
Right.
Hadassah was not called and came, right?
Yeah.
You have all these different things. Haman tried to exalt himself and was lowered. Mordecai lowers himself and is exalted, right? You've got all these different things going on, these different parallels and oppositions. Okay, chapter 7, if you're ready for it, unless you've got something to add there.
No, man, I'm ready to roll. Let's keep going.
Okay, real quick for Thin Blue Line. I say Yeshua, you can say Jesus, you can say Yahushua. There's all kinds of. I'm not a sacred namer. Jeff's not a sacred namer.
No.
Everybody's going to have their preference.
There's power in the name of Jesus. There's power in the name of Yeshua.
I've seen demons personally with my own eyes, Jeff. I've seen demons cast it out in the name of Jesus.
I've cast out demons in the name of Jesus.
Yeah, I've been used for it too. I've seen faces pushed through stomachs, Jeff. And then shoot out and projectile vomit in the name of Jesus. So I have no problem with the name of Jesus. I prefer Yeshua. That's what I feel comfortable with. I can't speak for everybody in the chat. I don't know who everybody is in the chat. Typically, our chat is very welcoming on the show. We've been very blessed with that. We have great admins and moderators, but typically we don't get people who are mean or snarky or have attitude or are trolling or anything like that.
Yep.
But this is not a platform where there's any prerequisites, let alone if there's a prerequisite, we ask that you listen, that you're active, and that you be respectful to those that you communicate with, whether it's us or in the live chat. That's prerequisites, if you want to call it that. But I'm not worried about who uses what name or anything like that. We don't have time for nonsense arguments.
Nonsense. Okay. Amen.
That's just how I view it. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Okay, chapter 7 here. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther, which Haman had to hasten to, right?
Right, he had to hurry
because he's been told to make haste multiple times. Come on, Haman, let's go.
Yep.
Let's get that triangle ahead of yours moving. And the king said to Esther Hadassah on the second day at the banquet of wine, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted to you. What is your request? And it shall be performed." Look how poetic that is. What is your petition? It shall be granted to you. What is your request? It shall be formed. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and it you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened. Right? Doesn't it have that same kind of vibe, that read to it? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so even to half the kingdom, he's saying it again. Isn't that the third time he's saying that? Up to half the kingdom.
Yeah,
I think that's the third time now.
It is.
Right?
It's the third time.
When she was in the court, was the first banquet and the second banquet. We have a number 3 again.
Right.
Jeff, what are the two numbers we keep seeing in this whole book? 7 and 3, right?
7 and 3, man. 7 and 3,
baby.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we see some 50s in here too, but 7 and 3, big time. So Esther the queen answers and says, "If I have found favor in your sight." Right? She's not this is not
she's not being pushy.
This is not Hail Mary full of grace. This is not repetitional phrasing where it's word vomit and it means nothing to you, right?
Yeah.
And those prayers, it's for word's sake. It's not, and all right, I won't bash the Catholic prayers, but I will bash the Catholic prayers. You know what I mean? But we'll leave that be. But my point is this: is that she's not word vomit, even though there's some repeating here. She means what she's saying.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got another person, first time Passover. Mitzi's first time. Put it in the comments underneath the video. Please put it in the comments in the video. I've got all kinds of information for you guys on Passover.
Yeah.
If you don't have me on Facebook, look me up on Facebook. My name's Ian Fiducia, IAN, last name FIDUCCIA. Look me up on Facebook. I love to talk about Passover. I love to. I've helped and guided many people on their first couple times, and I will not tell you this is the exact way and you must do it this way. I will give you the unbiased opinion of, well, other people do it this way. I disagree because of this. I'll show you my reasonings, but I'm not going to show any. The whole idea is if you're trying to keep the feast of Yah, I want to encourage that. If you feel that it's sliver or conjunction or equinox or whatever, I really don't care. It's not that I don't care. I've got my own way of what I believe is right, but I'm not going to try to control how you do it. I just want to help encourage and inform and give you knowledge and tell you about my experiences.
We're excited that you're wanting to do it.
Right. And that's between you and Yah. If I'm right about something and you're wrong, he'll show you. And if I'm wrong and you're right about something, hopefully he'll show me, right? This is what Skiba used to call it, wedding rehearsal.
That's right.
At wedding rehearsal, you're getting the positions down and the steps down. You're not going to get everything perfect first time go, especially, right? So if you're interested in some guidance and some encouragement and some opinions of what works and what doesn't work, or some suggestions, if you're looking for suggestions, I will gladly give them. I'm sure Jeff probably has some too that he would gladly give if you hit us up, if you so feel led.
Yeah.
Okay, so Esther the queen says, if I found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases you, O king, let my life be given me at my petition and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain and to perish. I and my people. She's I know the poetic and the heaviness. We are sold. Look at the language there. We're going to come back to this, but we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain and to perish. But there's a big but. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, which is an odd thing to say, but she's being honest here, right? If it was just about being servants, I wouldn't have even said anything, king.
Right.
Look at what she's saying here. And there's more I'm going to get into with this. Although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. And that right there is huge. If you guys are highlighting or underlining, right there, boom, right there. If you haven't done it already, I bet you haven't before. I'm not going to assume, but I bet. Although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. This is huge. And I'm going to get into this in a second. Then the king Ahasuerus, the mighty king. Is it Xerxes? No, I don't think so. I think it's Darius. I'm sorry, Jeff. I can't help it.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
The king Darius answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? Who's making these plans in his heart? And Hadassah says, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and queen. Okay, great.
Hang on. Man. He's already been embarrassed. He was lifted up with pride. He's like, man, the king is fixing to. I'm going to get to wear the king's robes. I'm going to get to be paraded around by the mightiest prince in the nation, and then he has to go and do it for Mordecai. He is really upset about this, and now he comes. He's like, well, at least I've got this last dinner to bring me back up, kind of get me back in the right frame of mind. He goes to this dinner. And, man, Esther just drops the bomb on him. She just does the mic drop thing. I love it. This wicked man, this wicked Haman is the adversary, right? What's the word adversary? Do you know the word adversary there? Hasatan. He is the Satan, right? He is the enemy.
The enemy of the Jews. You know? He's the adversary. He is the one pointing the fingers in the court. When we look at Hasatan in the language there, you have adversary. Versus what? Our mediator. What is the other term? That is a legal term that we use for our high priest, for Yeshua.
I was just going to say mediator, but what do you got there?
There's another one. No, you have adversary versus there's a term. I had it on the tip of my tongue. It starts with an A as well. But anyways, my point is that we're given legal jargon here. We're given courtroom jargon. Like how we're given agricultural references for those who can pick up on that and receive that and things like that. We are given a king of kings with a courtroom. We are given positions of scripture talks about judgment process and righteous judgment. We're painted a picture of a judge room.
Accuser. We've got accuser.
And we have an accuser. Right. Exactly. So we have advocate. There it is.
There we go.
Ta-da! Watchwoman for the point for the night there.
Yep. She gets the gold star next to her. Hallelujah.
Versus the advocate. That is one of the words that is used to describe Yeshua. And we're showing legal jargon here, and we're seeing the same language here for Haman that Esther is using here. She's referring to him in the same jargon, the same language as the enemy. And I love that you pointed out because I wanted to point that out. Okay, so unless you had something else, I got a bunch. We can go back up.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Yep.
Okay, you ready for this? Okay, so they're doing the second banquet, right? And she's repeating her request again, right? Yep. For we are sold. Look at the language here, okay? Do you remember I talked about before with Darius about how he was known to be a king of benefit? He was known to be a king of rewarding great and punishing great. He didn't. Remember how I brought this up in the last video? I brought this up because Haman, when he says, I want to take out this enemy of the kingdom, he doesn't even say that they're Jews. He doesn't tell the king that we see in the scripture of who the target is. He just says that they won't keep the laws. They've got their own laws. They refuse to obey the laws. And he's purposely not singling that it's just Mordecai that he has an issue with, right?
Right.
And so he's doing all this. And remember, Haman offered all that amount of money. Remember, you told us about the pounds of silver that we were talking about the amount of money, the equivalent and things like that.
Yeah.
Big chunk of change to ease the mind of the king of the cost towards the kingdom and the empire so that it's not something that would have been an issue. Well, look at Esther now using strategic, tactical conversation. like Haman, right?
Yep.
We're talking political speech here. She is using wisdom here. For we are sold, right? It is for gain, right?
Yeah.
I and my people to be destroyed. We are not just sold, but we are sold to be destroyed.
Yeah.
To be slain and to be perished. And if we had been sold for just bondmen and bondwomen, I would have held my tongue. Check it out. Why? Not because she has no problem with her people being slaves, but look at the end of that sentence there. The enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Look at this. What she's saying here, Jeff. Do you see this? She's saying if we had just been bondmen and bondwomen, then the cost for us goes up in pain, but the gain of the kingdom goes up as well, right? The pain of the Jews go up, but so does the benefit of the kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. The scales are balanced in the terms of the kingdom.
Right.
From a logical, secular viewpoint, looking at it. So she's trying to say, look, I'm looking at it from your viewpoint. If we were just sold to be servants, then yes, we would have pain, but our pain would bring you benefit. And as a believer in our Yah, and for the wisdom and logic of your kingdom, of how, if you're trying to persuade somebody of something to do something, that wouldn't it be better if you can argue that it's in their benefit? People do this all the time, whether it's conscious or subconscious. This is why I love doing debates, because I tend to be able to pull these persuasive, well, let's look at how you would benefit from what I'm suggesting versus what you're not benefiting of what you're suggesting, right? That's what Esther's doing here. Yeah. I'm proposing that this situation here, not only is it not good for me and my people, but it's going to cost you. The enemy could not countervail the king's damage. She's saying this plot, this plan, this decree causes us pain, but what's rising for you guys is not benefit. It's costing you as well.
It's going to cost you a lot.
It's going to hurt your economy. You have to take the time to kill us, and now you're losing the people underneath your power and your reign. It's literally hurting you. Yeah. It would not be in your benefit. It is not in your best decision to kill us.
Right.
Look at what she's saying here, Jeff. This is political strategic maneuvering. It's just I'm amazed by this. I truly am. I believe the Spirit's moving. I mean, she's tugging on his heart. We see that she has favor. Yeah. But she wants the king to know this is not just about you favoring me. This is not just about you doing this for me. Right. This is for the betterment of you as the king. This is the betterment for your kingdom. This is the betterment for all. This is the best decision all around. Is that not usually how Yah does things? The best decision for all under the umbrella, not just for one or two.
No, I see that. And something the way the MEV words it too, for that distress would not be sufficient to trouble the king. I like how it words it right there. If it was just because we're slaves and we're going to be destroyed, hey, that's not if we'd only been sold as male and female slaves, man, that's not the issue. That's not even worthy to bring it before you. But because, like you say, that this is such a great detriment to the king and to the kingdom. Man, I love the phrasing of this here, because we need to I don't know how's it say? Psalm 34:4 in the Amplified Classic version says, I sought the Lord, I sought Jehovah, inquired of him out of necessity and on the authority of his word. We need to make sure that how we come to the Father is not just a selfish reason, but one that benefits the king and the kingdom. We need to take ourselves out of the way. I look at Esther as just a format of prayer all the way through.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to view it. I love that you're bringing that in.
Yeah. So anyway, that again, she has the authority of his word here, and she has a need, and it's not a selfish need. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. No, it is powerful. Real quick before we go back here, we did have somebody in the chat that was asking if we must be circumcised to partake in the Passover meal, born Catholic, circumcision of the heart, or should we justly we wait in the flesh? And so I think it seems like they're asking, does it have to be a physical circumcision or just a spiritual circumcision? I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody to get physically circumcised. Yeah, that is between you and Yah on whether or not you. There are some verses that are interpreted in different ways to the point where, on this platform, and for me telling just random whoever, I'm not going to tell you to physically. That's between you and Yah. If Yah tells you, then yeah. But otherwise, the emphasis will always be of the heart. Always.
Well, there's some people that have been physically circumcised when they were first born, and have never followed the commands, never even given their life to Yah. And they're physically circumcised, but they've never had their heart circumcised. Again, I 100% agree. I think you need to start with having your heart circumcised.
That's definitely the most important.
That's the most. Yeah, that's
the most important. You know.
Yeah.
Would it surprise me that there are those who are not physically circumcised in the kingdom of Yah? No, I would not be surprised. No. Would I be surprised if they're in the kingdom of Yah and they'd never had their heart circumcised? I'd be extremely confused. I don't think it's
gonna, what about the thief on the cross next to Yeshua, Jesus? Jesus didn't say, "Hey, you know what? If you want to be with me today in paradise, get Larry, this Roman soldier, to quick give you a snip, so you can go into paradise." Yeah, that's right. And you need to be, it did get Mo over here and have him pour some. Yes, I'm referring to Mo, Larry, and Curly, and have them pour some water on your head. No, that's crazy, right?
Let's get all the physical letters of the law done 100%, but forget the spiritual. We're joking around, but what we're basically saying is that the circumcision of the heart is the most important thing. If you want to keep the Passover, if you want to observe the feast of Yah, if you believe that is important, that's something you want to start doing. Please, by all means, don't let anybody, me, Jeff, whoever in this channel, or anybody outside of this, discourage you from doing that. Go if you want to do that because you believe it's the right thing to do and you're interested and you want to try to do it at the best of your ability. Go look up some things. You can ask around. Like I said, Jeff and I are. I'm very willing. I love talking about.
Amen. I do too.
Especially Passover. I'll help you with other feasts, but I'm best at Passover. That's like, if you're gonna have me help you with anything, Passover is the one to have my help on. But at the end of the day, you're going to try to do the best as you can understand it. And that's the most important thing is you're trying to do as Yah. So you ask him, right? But I would not expect Yah to say you need to go get physically snipped in order to do the Passover meal. I just don't see that. I mean, it could happen for some people, I mean, you do see that with the crossing of the Jordan, they got snipped and then they kept the Passover. But I'm just saying,
hey, but okay, watch this. Hang on. They wandered in the desert for 40 years and they still hadn't been circumcised.
Well, it was a different crew though.
But
this was the youth, and you're right. They hadn't been circumcised as a youth. Yeah. Obviously, they weren't being circumcised on the 8th day, right?
Yeah, they were still keeping Passover for those 40 years. There you go. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I just wanted to throw that out there for the person. I want them to feel encouraged to try to seek doing Passover and stuff like that. If you're feeling internally conflicted about physical circumcision, just pray that Yah makes it clear to you on whether or not that's something he wants you to do and how to go about it either way, and then just put it in his hands.
Amen.
This is one of those things, I'm going to leave it to you, and I'm not going to keep pressing on that. If you want me to do it, you'll show me and you'll make it to where I do it. And if not, then we'll worry about other things.
Amen.
But I can almost guarantee you that it's going to be more important to Yah about your heart. That is going to be the focus. He wants the relationship.
Yep.
The physical thing, it's all about a sign of the circumcision of the heart. It's not a, okay. Anyhow, had to get that out there. I see things like that in the chat and I'm like, whoa, I saw some people answering some things and it's good, but I felt like, I don't want them to get the wrong idea of this channel. JJ's in the house. JJ hemp with his beard, hemp oils and things. Jeff, if you haven't tried that, you might want to ask him for a little small jar.
Hey, JJ. Hey, help a brother out. I've never heard of it. Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
He said, let me get my beard ready for Purim. Right.
There we go. Yeah.
Right?
There we go. I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. So are you ready for verse 7 here?
Let's go, man.
Are we good to move forward? Okay, 7 verse 7, the king arising from the banquet of the wine in his wrath. In his wrath. He stormed out, Jeff. In my mind, he stormed out. It said he arose in his wrath and went into the palace. I'm telling you, in my mind, that went there is stormed off. You could feel the tension of him being in that room. Whether or not they were on the porch or balcony or whatever, he went to the palace garden, which I think they were overlooking. That's the view I get. I believe they were either on the balcony or next to open doors next to the balcony. That's just personal speculation, though. And so he goes out into the palace garden. He wants to calm down and think. This is a man who tries to take his behavior and emotions and make them be controlled based on logic and wisdom.
Yep.
This is not a man who wants to.
It doesn't sound like Xerxes.
It doesn't, does it?
It doesn't sound like Xerxes.
Ever since I brought it up, it clicks, doesn't it, Jeff?
It does.
Everything just falls into place. I'm telling you. The whole book of Esther makes so much more sense when you see it's not Xerxes. So Haman, so he goes to the garden to think. He doesn't want, here's the thing about this type of king. He understands that if he says something, it's going to be done.
Yeah.
And he knows that in his wrath, if he just blurts something out of that table instead of getting up and walking away, distancing himself from the position, taking a 20/20 view,
Right.
perspective, looking at it from some distance, trying to get some wise view on it, whatever he says is going to go.
Right.
Whatever he says in that moment. So, I think that was part of the reason why he got out of there. He didn't want to do or say something that he was going to regret. He truly believes in being a wise, well-behaved king, as we see Darius, as we see in the manner of Darius. That's how he was. Okay. So Haman stood up to make request for his life to Hadassah the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. He sees that he felt the tension. They act like this isn't obvious. You put yourself in that situation.
Oh,
he rose up in wrath after the queen says that this is the man. Okay, real quick, Jeff, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think one of the many reasons Hadassah has it of being just the three of them is because this is how the Torah tells us to do something? When you have an issue with somebody,
yes, bring it to him in private.
And you in front of him. She's not doing gossip. She's not pointing fingers.
Nope.
She's giving Haman the chance to speak up against it. Also shows that she's speaking a true testimony of what's going on.
Right.
Right. I don't think a lot of people think about this, but having Haman present when you say that gives him the chance to defend himself.
Yeah.
She's giving him the opportunity. She could have done this without him. She could have done it in the court when Haman wasn't there.
He did not jump up and say, "You're lying. This is a horrible plot." He didn't say that. It said that Haman was seized with terror. And so what in my mind, I'll try to put myself there, right? I wasn't there. I don't think they had any spy cams there. We don't have any actual raw footage of this event, but I can see Haman just like, his mouth just drops. He becomes just white as a ghost. The blood runs out of his head. I mean, it says he is seized with terror before the king and the queen. And then the king just, he throws a chair back. He probably slams his wine down. He storms off, and now Haman is freaking out. And what's he do? He remains behind to plead for his life. Man, he is not denying what she just said. That, hey, you gotta give Haman some credit here. Right here, he didn't say anything negative. He's like, wow, I screwed up. I really messed up. He is pleading for his life to Queen
Esther.
He's
in the boiling pot, Jeff. There is trying to. He realizes this moment. The king just ran out with wrath. This is his one opportunity. He's being an opportunist here.
He is.
The king marches off. You can feel that tension, Jeff.
Yeah.
There's no shalom in this moment.
And you can feel that in the air, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, dude. And so the king leaves. This is his chance, and he does this not in front of the king.
Not in front of the king.
Right? He's doing this privately, not to have a public spectacle. This he doesn't want 75 feet in the air above the citadel.
Right.
This is what he doesn't want in front of the entire city, Jeff. Right?
Yeah.
Right? This is what he doesn't do in the court. This is okay. So the he requests for his life,
right,
after demanding the life of Mordecai,
and
the Jews.
Yeah,
is this not kind of like what we see with Cain and with Cain, right? Yeah. They're quick to murder somebody else, but then they whine and scream and squiggle and get squeamish. Well, what about my life? Doesn't my life matter for something?
Yeah,
Cain's life matters, Jeff. I'm sorry. But you know what I mean, though? Like, you know what I'm saying, though? I mean, and lives do matter. Everybody's lives matter. But here's my point here is that he's worried about his life when he wasn't worried about others. He's acting a little bit like Jonah here at the end of the book of Jonah.
That's right.
Or Cain after killing his brother, so on and so forth. This is build Vashti better. because I made a make Persia great again reference. I had to get that other.
There you go.
Got to get the dual sides
again, guys.
All right, so the king returns out of the palace to the garden. He's calmed down a little bit, and he's got in his mind of what he's got his wits about him, right? And he returns out of the palace garden into what a good place to go to think to a garden.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Haman was fallen upon. It says bed in King James. It might say couch in other ones. It's the same word, couch, bed, whatever.
Couch.
It seems to me that couch is more of what you.
Couch is probably appropriate. Yeah.
I mean, this is a place where you could sleep, but you're more than likely resting, right?
Yeah.
So Esther,
hang on. Think about that. This is verse 8. The king has kind of calmed down a little bit. He's walking back in, and it says, as Haman was falling, mine says on the couch. He's falling on the couch right where the queen is.
Yeah.
Oh man, if the king had calmed down, right? Go ahead.
he's begging, right? But yeah, he's on. It seems like. Does it not seem like he's partially physically on top of Esther?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not
begging for his life. Please.
Well, this is not just at her feet.
No.
It says on the couch, falling on the couch. So he's thrown himself. Oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The king just got done trying to calm himself down, Jeff. He just tried to get his wits together. He tried to get his emotions together, Jeff.
Yeah. Yep.
And he comes back into the room and sees Haman, the accuser, the adversary, right?
Yeah.
On top of his wife, on the queen.
On the queen, man.
On the queen. And this is the one that, had wanted her dead. And the king says, well, he forced the queen also before me in the house, right? And the word went out of the king's mouth. As the word went out, they came and covered Haman's face. So at this point, he's screaming.
Hang on. This, in the MEV, it says, as the shout erupted from the king's.
Jeff, you still there with us? Am I the only one that sees him like frozen? Someone in the chat, tell me, are you hearing Jeff right now? Are you hearing me right now? Is he frozen? Because I've got him frozen.
I'm frozen, man. I'm back.
There you go.
Back.
There you go. Okay.
So he shouts this. Are you gonna, can I just? Are you gonna rape the queen while I'm in the room? That's
right.
That's the language that we hear, and he is shouting this. So any bit of peace, any bit of kind of calming down, it's gone. It's gone.
Right.
Dude.
So do you think that was on his mind? Because that is one of the things that is brought up. And this is the one time where out of all the sexual innuendo views in Esther that I don't dismiss, because all the other ones I strongly dismiss. I don't believe when they said that they slept the night at the king's house. I was praying on this past week because I was like, man, there is that one verse that says that they would come to the king's house and the next morning they would leave. And I was like, that's the one verse out of the entire book.
Yeah.
Right. I was praying on it. And Jeff, you know what I got reminded of? I believe it was the spirit that told me this, but maybe it was just my mind messing with me. But what I got reminded, which made me go, I didn't even think of that, which made me think all the more it's the spirit, because I had not comprehended this at all. And it blew my mind. They were in a different house, Jeff. They came to the king's house. That's not one room.
No, it's
a whole nother
huge.
Big palace. So when it says that doesn't necessarily mean came to the king's room and spent the night in the king's room. It says it came to the king's house.
Yeah.
If you come at the evening, and the king has the option to keep you, so maybe that's one of the reasons why you stay there the next morning, or maybe also so that none of the females, Jeff, hear me out on this. What if the king were to choose to sleep with one or a few, but not all? Mm-hmm. Then the rest of them, there's going to be an uproar when some come back that night and some don't. Yeah. So maybe the protocol was just they always stay in the king's house. Maybe it was too far of a travel. They're bringing them before the evening, but it's going to be dark out. It's not safe. We don't want problems. You're just going to stay in one of the guest rooms because, like we said, they talk about it being a virgin. Here's something for you, Jeff, real quick on that note.
Yeah.
Did Esther and the king have a marriage contract? In ancient Persia, marriage contracts were made between the husband and the bride's family. The husband's pledged to be given the woman in marriage, and gifts were presented to the bride and her family. If the husband wanted a second wife, he gave the first wife a sum of money and would dismiss her, and she'd be sent free to go home. Okay, which is probably why King Darius here wanted counsel on how to treat Vashti. How do we send her back? How do we banish her without giving her the first wife's payment?
Right.
What are the legal terms here? I think that might have been one of the reasons why he wanted counsel here. Is do I still have to pay her? Does she still need to get paid? Does she need to be killed? Does she get banished out of the palace, out of the kingdom? What's going on here? I think he wanted specifics on that, and I think he wanted to know if he needed to pay them. If the husband wanted a second wife, he had to pay the first wife a sum of money. She'd be sent home free. Depending on the husband's wealth, a bride's dowry could include land, household items, jewelry, money, slaves. Mixed marriages amongst Persians and non-Persians existed at that time, and the royal children were used in marriages to create strategic alliances between groups of nations. Texts discovered by historians at Susa in Babylon give an account of Alexander's wedding with the princess, daughter of King Darius III. The wedding was called out in Persian tradition. The bride would enter the room, would sit beside the bridegroom. He would take her hands, kiss them. The two of them ate from the same loaf of bread, sliced in two parts by a sword, and drank some wine. At the end of the ceremony, her husband would take the bride home. And that is when you would have your consummation. So I'm just saying, looking at what history tells us about the Persian kingdom, I'm still at the same mindset of what I said last week. And that was one of the things I want to emphasize of what we're going with. I don't believe Vashti was asked to dance naked or striptease or anything sexual. And we don't even see the word dance there. Mm-mm. We see that it was a beauty, and we talked about that last video. Anybody who wants to argue with that or doesn't know what we're talking about, go check out the last video and make your comments there. I don't believe that the virgins were slept with, and that's why they're called virgins throughout the entire book.
They're called virgins after that period where they went to the king's house.
Multiple times. And there was a second gathering to get them ready to get them out, right? And to give them roles of whether they're going to stay maids in the palace or whatever. But there's all kinds of things here going on. And you got to remember, like I mentioned before, the pretender king, the great pretender, the one who was supposed to be a son of Cyrus who wasn't, all the more reason why you wouldn't be sleeping with hundreds or thousands of women and then send them back into the town to possibly have descendants in an issue of who or who is not. I'm just saying there's a lot of things to look at there. This is the one time, Jeff, do you think the king thought in the fraction of a second, because people do say this, that he thought that Haman was trying to physically force himself
I think so. I think he's had some wine, right? Because it's a feast of wine. I think it's what we talked about. It
did say banquet of wine twice.
Feast of wine. They've had some wine. He's calming down. He comes back in, and the scripture just says, as Haman was falling on the couch or the bed, it's where Esther was. He is trying to come down. He's really trying to get his point across to Esther. The king sees this, and he erupts. He shouts this. Will he, Haman, will he also violate the queen? I'm not sure what it says there in the King James. It says violate the queen while I'm in the room. I think that's significant. I think that's
King James. It says, will he force the queen also before me in the house? So in the force there, you have. It really depends on what your mind state is when you're reading that, much like how we've mentioned with the other things. Yeah. Because I mean, you could use that. One of the words kabash is the Hebrew there, kabash, right?
Yeah.
And kind of put the kibosh on it, right? Right. I'm sorry, I had to do it, but It can mean to bring into bondage, force, subjugate, violate. So you do have violate and subjection and things like that. Yeah. Tread down, right? It's to disregard. So you could use that in a sexual forceful terminology, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. But it could be used either way.
I even see one of the ways you could translate it is assault. So maybe even not assault, could not be. Maybe it's not a sexual thing, but it definitely there's some physical.
Either way, he says, "How dare you try to convince her and force her? How dare you try to." Press upon her physically as well as you're trying to make her make your decision.
If nothing else, he is touching the queen.
Yeah.
Dude, you don't do that, right? You don't do that.
I know. Just bad decision one after another. He's desperate. He's not thinking straight. He's a wicked man. Yeah. You got to remember, I mean, the moment the king says, who do we honor right away? Haman is assuming himself. This is what that, somebody had earlier said in the chat, they had used the word sociopath or psychopath, narcissist. That's what it was. Anyways, that was Haman.
Yeah.
I think the saddest thing about the whole thing is his counsel. The friends he had behind his circle, his wife, everybody in his circle, in his corner had the same
I like what Mitzi I like what Mitzi says here, or did the king think he was trying to kill her right then?
It's possible too.
I like that.
I mean, he probably had multiple things going in his head, but at the very least, all of these things are all versions of the exact same thing. The underlining being, how dare you force her? Whether it's force her to plead, force her physically, sexually, whatever, try to kill her, try to harm her, harass her. Yeah. All of these things are pressing upon. And you see a spiritual and physical. They're all, so whether any or all of them are connected, at the very least, it's all the same language. And it's all. My point is, they're all coming from the same root.
They are.
What I'm getting at. These are all fruit of the same root. So no matter which fruit he was intending, it's all the same root.
Do you have anything on the last part of verse 8 where it says they covered the at the shadow?
I don't. Do you have something on that?
What? No, but I'm just thinking they covered the face of Haman. Why did they cover his face?
Because he's ugly. No, they had, it's like blindfolding. It's subjecting. It's putting into bondage. I get the visual of like your potato sack type of thing. You go to handcuff and things like that. They put the bag over their head. Makes it easier for him not to spit and bite and things.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the king is defending her honor, and I'm thinking I don't even want you to see this guy anymore. Boom, put something over his face.
Yeah.
Because I mean the trauma. So whether or not she's assaulting him just physically or sexually, I'm actually kind of leaning more now towards just an assault. I really kind of like what Mitzi said there, because man, that kind of makes more sense. She just dropped this bomb on Haman. King walks out. He's mad. He comes back in. Who's the only witness to this? Esther. Boom, kill her. Wow. Okay. So or maybe as a retaliation. So maybe that's going on, and maybe
if he had done that while the king was gone, and if he was successful in killing her.
Yeah.
If the king was dead, who gets the kingdom?
There we go. Haman. There we go.
Because the king has no children at this time. He has no heirs to the throne.
Yeah. So, gosh, covers the face. Why does he cover the face? We know from people that have been physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, there's trauma there. And so I can see this as something where the king is, again, showing his compassion, his love for Hadassah, and he is covering the face of Haman out of love. That's what I see.
Yeah, you've got that as well. Okay, so Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, "Behold also the 50 cubits high gallows which Haman had prepared for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, stands in the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Okay, well, hang him there on." Look, they were quick to get that word out there, weren't they? They were like, "Hey, while you're taking him, I know the spot, the place he made himself for Mordecai, who spoke good of you, who spoke good for you," right? Because he was the one that saved the king.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, there's a way to punish this guy already. I mean, it's just
right
great.
In his own house, which it just proves right there. They're like, look, it solidifies what Esther was saying, that he's out against Mordecai, he's out against the Jews, he's out against Esther. But I mean, how much more, like, when you're like done with it and the proof just keeps coming up,
it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming.
He's got this thing built, and remember, he didn't get to talk to the king about it.
No, he didn't.
No decree. The decree that was made, Jeff, was for 11 months out to the day.
Right.
We're 50 days in, Jeff. We're 50 days in. That's
just 50 days
2
in.
months, Jeff. They're supposed to have 9 more months to get prepared and to either leave or whatever.
Yeah, slaughter this people. Yeah.
It said to be prepared against that day. The announcement was made, and he's chomping at the bit 50 days in, and he's already got gallows made at his house, Jeff.
At his house.
They didn't even make an agreement. They didn't even make an agreement on how the execution was going to be handled, where, when. All we had was 11 months in. You can go kill them. You can gather them and kill them however you're going to see fit. You put it in his house. So they put him on the gallows, right? Whether it was a hanging by rope, which it's really very unlikely, impalement, which is the common answer by the scholars,
right?
And then there's me and apparently the Septuagint,
and Septuagint, and Flavius Josephus is on your side, sir.
Really?
There we go. Yeah,
wow,
that was the second.
Jeff, I didn't come across this at all.
Yeah, that was the second quote under the picture. Was a direct quote from Flavius Josephus, showing that it was a crucifixion.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
Josephus and we don't agree on everything. I actually had a really interesting dream that you and I can talk about once, about me and Josephus arguing face to face. Nice. Yeah, it was really weird because I wasn't very well studied up on it, but I believe there was some meaning to it. But Josephus and I don't see eye to eye on everything. But man, that would be something we would agree on, at least currently where I'm at. Okay, so Haman becomes the cursed tree, which was one of the things I was looking at. I was thinking about saying the cursed vampire.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are like, what the heck is that talking about? Because anybody who doesn't know, the Amalekites, where you get the Agagites from the time of Saul,
Right.
Amalekite can be translated. It's one of the ways to translate it as vampire like demon. The Amalekites were known for bloodletting, blood drinking, things like this. And we even have skull remains of Amalekites where you have vampire like fangs and some odd skull shaped things like that. Trey Smith, Brian Forrester, and I think there's a couple others that go through that as well for anybody who's
we've got to do a show.
Dude, we got to.
All of the ites. Like you've got the Horites. I mean, gosh, they're like troglodyte cave dwellers. I mean, we have skulls from these guys where they have enlarged eye sockets so they could see in the dark. They didn't have. We can go through.
I know. There's all kinds of things. We got the lion men of Moab. Jeff, don't get me started. We'll go all night on that, and we're gonna have to at least once or twice. We'll get into the weird and freaky, fun stuff that you and I like to talk about.
Yeah,
the myths, the legends, the what ifs, the misunderstandings, the possibilities, the perhaps could be's, et cetera, and then the proof that makes us think that those things are more than just simply that what ifs. But so amazing point, right? The crucible, the crucible here, right? Of Haman being cursed upon his own stake there.
Yeah.
Are you ready to move to chapter 8 to wrap this baby up?
I am, man. I am.
Okay. On that day, this is where I want to point out just a couple things on this. On that day, right? We're on that same day still. King Ahasuerus, the mighty king Darius, gives the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy. Look at there's that title again. Unto Hadassah, Esther the queen, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was under her. So now he can come before the king because now everybody knows.
Yeah.
The king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Esther did that, right? Just like how, keep in mind, when Mordecai had found out about the plot, he didn't go straight to the king himself, and he could have. He wanted to get favor for him and Esther, and it played strategic, tactical movements, Jeff.
Yeah.
Mordecai told Esther to tell the king, get her that favorment, get them connected, show that this is your alliance king. These are the truth speakers. These are those who care about you. Wasn't this about the end of the Persian Empire? No, this wouldn't be the end. This was more like in the middle.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of kings after. You got centuries after here. Okay, so the king took off his ring, which he took from Haman, gave it to Mordecai. Esther sets Mordecai over the house of Haman. This is not just his house, okay? This is his land. Keep in mind, Haman had many sons. He had many remember, he was boasting about his riches, his wealth, his possessions, his servants, maidservants, manservants, donkeys, and all these things, all the things that we see in the commandments, in the 10 commandments, where they talk about, don't covet your neighbors, etc.
Right.
He had all of it, right? Just like Job had all of it. Haman was a very wealthy man. All of that given to Mordecai. The man who raised his cousin as his own, the orphaned daughter who lost both of her parents, the foreigner the sojourner in a foreign land, in the Persian land, right? There's so many things to look at here.
Yeah.
And it's heart-wrenching in a good way that we see the righteous being treated in such a way they endured to the end. It's part of the message of the story here, to have hope and stuff. But here we go, Jeff. Are you ready for this? Something that people don't notice. Verse 3 of chapter 8. Haman's dead, right? Haman's dead. And Esther speaks again before the king, fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite. What is she talking about? He's dead.
It's the law. It's the decree that
his device that he had devised against the Jews. Hold on, wait a minute. What are you saying,
active.
Jeff?
It's still active.
What?
It's still active.
But she had 2 banquets, Jeff, and Haman is killed, and he saw all this. What's going on? What do you mean? It's still the law of the land.
It's still the law of the land.
Which can't be undone, right? Didn't we talk about that already? We've already talked about that in the book of Daniel. It says the Persian law cannot be undone. This hasn't been changed. We see that in the secular history.
Yep.
Right? So what's going on here? It hasn't been undone, right? And she's now look at how she's treating it differently. There's no longer the if I have found favor in your sight. There's no longer if it pleases you. Why? Because that's already been established.
Yeah.
And the individual that was the main issue has been destroyed. So now it's a piece of paper. Now it's a piece of paper and matter of legalities and politics.
And she is begging him with tears. And I can't get past this. She should be. This is the same day. It says on that day.
On Shavuot.
On Shavuot, all of this explodes. All of this happens. Haman is gone. He's gone out. He's now crucified. Come on, I didn't know that before. He's crucified. Right? He's crucified. The king takes off his signet ring. He gives it back. He gives it to Mordecai. Esther's appoints Mordecai over the household, over the house of Haman. And then this is all happening in one day. And then Esther falls down and begging and with tears.
You remember how I said we collapsed from almost a year to months to weeks to days to time of day? Now we went from hours. Now we're in minutes.
Minutes.
Literally, Haman is being taken out, executed.
Yeah.
As that's happening,
yeah.
Does it say Hadassah goes to the bank over the balcony, watches Haman die, and has a wonderful smile on her face, and everything is happy? This is not about the joy of the death of Haman. We don't even see any of that. Haman would be acting that way. Haman's joy was ruined by Mordecai not bowing, and surely he thought in his heart and in his mind and in his soul and spirit, if I see Mordecai die, then my joy will be full again.
Right.
He's thinking he's going to take joy out of the pain of others, and yet we see Hadassah and the Jews and Mordecai, they're not celebrating the death.
They're not out of the woods yet. That's the thing.
But it's not even about the death of the enemy, and that's my point. It's about the good for those, for the all, and for the good of the righteous, and for overall the umbrella, right? Not about the punishment of the evil.
Right.
It's like we don't point to the souls that go to Sheol and whether you believe it's temporary or permanent, or things like that.
I think people stop on chapter 7 and they think they have it all done.
Like it's already done. That's why I'm asking you, Jeff, what's going on here?
Oh, yeah.
I love how you played that. You did good there.
Chapter 8. This is the chapter 8 is the Paul Harvey chapter in the book of Esther, because this is the rest of the story. Yeah. Because we don't really get that. We don't understand. Again, like you say, this was spoken in the law. This has to happen. Something has to happen. Something has to happen to fulfill this decree. And
right. And here's the thing, Jeff. We're seeing further proof of what the historians show us about during the time of Daniel and moving forward, that the laws of Persia could not be undone. And why do I say that? Because the signet ring, as you pointed out, the ring that does what? What is the power and authority behind that ring? Why was that ring given to Haman? And what did he do the moment he had that ring but make a decree for his evil desire? That's when you can put a piece of paper, put the king's signet on there, and it's in the king's name, and it's done.
It's done.
And yet,
just as the king had spoken himself.
And yet, does Hadassah turn to Mordecai and say, go undo it? Or put out a new decree or whatever? But instead, like the woman who cried at Yeshua's feet and washed his feet with perfume and tears and with her hair.
Yeah.
We see Hadassah, in a way, symbolically, crying over the feet of the king, washing his feet with her tears, begging him, besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite and his device that he devised against the Jews. And so there is no behind the back. Everything is in front. Everything is transparent. Everything is as it is. They are not hiding. There's no hidden agendas here with Hadassah and Mordecai. The king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose, right? Because she's at his feet crying, stood before the king and said, if it pleases the king, and if I found favor in the sight. Now we have it, right? But first she had that. And if the thing seems right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, man, she is really, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, to reverse it, right?
Yep.
Hamadatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews. Okay, now maybe she doesn't know Persian law as well as what we've noticed here, right? She's asking for a reversal. How do you reverse it?
I think that she's asking for a miracle right here.
Okay.
I think she knows. I think she knows Persian law. And I think she knows Persian law, and I think she's looking for some kind of a miracle here. Okay. If anybody can figure it out, the king can figure it out.
If there's any kind of loophole, right?
Well, okay. Again, I'm looking at Esther as just a formula for prayer or a picture of prayer. You know what? This is where we go to when we go to Yah. We don't know how we should pray as we ought, right? Father, I'm not trying to pray a soulish prayer here, but if there's anybody that can figure this out, it's you. I don't know how to pray this. I don't know what I necessarily need to do, but Father, I'm coming to you and I'm asking for this. And if there's any way possible, Yeshua prayed like that. Father, if there's any way for this cup that I don't have to do this cup, may it pass, right?
Yeah, sure
that's
did.
good.
I point at that sometimes. Okay, so she's asking him, how do we undo this? If it seems right and good to you, and if I have favor in your eyes, how can I endure to see the evil that shall come to my people? You know, not just me, but my people too. I can't sit and watch. How can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred, my family?
Oh,
These are kinfolk.
yeah.
And she's in tears, Jeff.
Yeah.
And the mighty king Darius said unto Esther the queen and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hung upon the gallows before he laid his hand upon the Jews, right? Because he had laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also, you write, you and Mordecai, because you have the ring. So look, she's asking for permission, not making an assumption. And he's saying, yeah, go do it. You guys go do this. Write you also for the Jews as it liketh you, in your words, how you see fit, how you see it working, and in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. You guys write it up how it looks good to you. Go over it. Mordecai knows his stuff as a scribe. Seal it with the king. I'll put my name on it, how you guys see fit. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Now remember, that was the case with the first decree. It was in the king's name with the king's ring and cannot be reversed. So how do you reverse it? Well, look at what they did here. They didn't reverse it. They made an addition, an annexation that in a way undoes, right? So where the king's scribes called at the time in the third month of Sivan, right? Now this is the 23rd day. They're getting together and they're doing this together. They're putting time together. Yeah. So obviously this wasn't done the same day, right? We went from the 6th of Sivan to now we're at the 23rd. So it took some time to get everything together. They really wanted to make sure they got this right. They've been given the go-ahead. They're not going to rush this.
Well, and I think the wording, and that's what they're looking at, the wording.
Of the original decree.
Yeah, do you think that they – okay, this is a question for you. Do you think that they took the original decree, opened it up, right, because it was sealed? Did they open it up and then, like you're saying, extend it? Maybe they sewed some more skins on it and extended it?
I'd have to look at how the Persians did things back then. I know that they had copies of the summation that was sent out throughout the city, but the original one itself, you're right, it was sealed. They had to go and open it. They had to go and open it to study it.
Yeah, and what I'm proposing is
that they physically added on. They might have.
Yeah, and they had, like you said, they addended, right?
And that's how you undo it without reversing it.
Because they're not reversing the original decree.
You can't.
But they're adding, with the king's permission, they're adding to this decree however they saw fit.
They put end in subsection A-37.1439 as they do it, right? The subsections. That's how we do it in our laws too. If we don't undo something, we go and add in a subsection. In the case of, in the circumstance of such and such and such, and then you add your little small fine print, right?
And I think that's what happened here. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that. They might have even rewritten the original so that they had the space if they didn't just come in and sew in a physical, so that way it's one piece.
Well, again, they could go in with a razor blade and just take off the words, or if it was a water ink, they would blot it out,
right?
Just like so. Anyway, but just interesting. I do think that they had to use the original decree. That's kind of my.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think you're right, because they can't undo it, and that proves that they didn't undo it or change it, right?
Right.
So it's written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, to the lieutenants and deputies, the rulers of the provinces which are from India to Ethiopia. Again, only the case under Darius, 127 provinces. Unto every province according to the writing thereof, right? All the different languages of every people have their language. To the Jews according to their writing and according to their language, right? So it was in the ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, whatever they were, their version of the ancient Hebrew at that time, right? And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name. So it probably said in the name of King Darius. Probably didn't say Ahasuerus' title of mighty king there. And sealed it with the king's ring and sent letters by posts on horseback, riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Right? I love when we see camels in scripture. I think that's so cool. Yeah. It's just a little thing. I like camels. Okay. So the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life. So here's the addendum. Here's the annexation here, okay? It's not that day doesn't happen, but rather the Jews were given permission to gather together, to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people in province that would assault them, both little ones and women, to take the spoil of them for a prey. Anybody who comes up against them, they can fight back, overpower, take over, and take spoil. Jeff, they've been because that was the original decree of what was to be done to the Jews.
Right,
It was great and small, men, women, children were to be killed. all their land was to be taken, and spoils.
And that part's still there. That's the reason I'm saying they added to it. That part is still there. The people of the nation could still come against the Jews, but what's added is if they come against you, the Jews have every right not only to attack you back. Okay, let's say I'm the attacker. You're this Jew. I say, oh, I know Ian's this Jew. I'm gonna go attack him. I'm gonna get all his stuff. I come to attack you. You and your buddies attack me, kill me, and not only do you get my stuff, you get all of my stuff.
Right.
Wow. That would be like pause for me to say, you know what? Yeah, Ian, guys, he's pretty good. I'm gonna leave him alone. I think that's.
Don't you think you'd be less likely to do this too? Because it's not like the king came out and said, "Well, let the Jews defend themselves." But with this addition of they can take your stuff and your spoil too, doesn't it show that the king, kind of backing this? Saying, hey, look, there's some power behind these people.
Well, and interesting enough, it says in verse 11, not only could they assault the person assaulting them, but their little children and their women included.
Right.
Man,
because that was the original language for the Jews.
Absolutely.
Great and small, they were all to be killed, and it's literally
it's the reverse.
Whatever you wanted to do to them, they can do to you, and we are giving the power. You know what really stuck out to me was where it says, "Cause them to perish all the power of the people in the province that would assault them, all the power of the people in province."
Right.
So if they were trying to come at them, if there's a province, keep in mind now. If we have different counties in a state, they might try to do things a little differently based on jurisdictions, right? Especially we've seen that in the past 2 years. Different counties, different cities, different towns, different states doing different things. Well, like the United States of 50 states, this was the united 127 provinces of Persia. The ones closer to India might be more likely to be lax or strict on certain things than the ones over by Ethiopia, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying if the provinces themselves as a government try to stand up against you, you can overthrow that government as well. The power of all. Look at that. Do you see what I'm saying, Jeff? This is not just about personal belongings anymore. We're talking about if that government, if that mayor of that province, if that prince tries to take you over, guess what? If you beat him, it's going to be a Jewish prince now.
Yeah.
Jeff,
that's powerful, man.
That's no game, Jeff.
They're like, I'm kind of done with that. I'm not messing with that.
Well, some of them fought against them. That's what's crazy. And I'm going to suggest that it was the ones that was more of them were further away from Shushan than not, but there was some in Shushan, and we see that here. Okay, so the copy of the writing for a commandment was given to every province, published unto all the people, and the Jews should be ready against that day. So look, they're saying, look, there's people out there who have already made it their mind. They disliked you from the get-go. This gave them reason.
Right.
Be prepared to avenge yourselves. The post that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hastened. There's that haste again. Everything's fast in this one. Pressed on by the king's command.
Okay, well, hang on. Do you know why?
Well, I mean, obviously it has to be here, right?
Well, yeah. Months have already gone by since this decree went out. People are already gearing up for this. And, okay, look, if you're in Persia, if you're, this is a big empire. How far do they have to go to India?
Yeah,
how far is it to Ethiopia? They've got to be quick.
Hey, what have we seen in the past 2 years? If you tell somebody, if you even give them the belief that they can riot and act chaotic, what have we seen the past 2 years?
Boom.
They might do it before you even give them the go-ahead. If you simply seem to be okay with it, if you let somebody else do it, does not another group just say, well, let's just do this?
Let's get it.
So if they're told 11 months and we're halfway through that, who's to say that they're not chomping at the bit, ready to go right now?
Ready to go. Yep.
But like you said, it's a vast empire. So, they have to move fast to get there in time. Okay, so Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white with a great crown of gold and with a garment of fine linen. There's that word linen there. And purple. Yep. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad, right? So the majority of Shushan, it seems, the Jews had light and gladness, joy, and honor. Look at that. It says light. Light's the first word there. Light and gladness, joy, and honor. In every province, every city, whatsoever the king's commandments decree came, the Jews had joy, gladness, a feast, and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
Yes.
Why is that always skipped?
Oh, man.
Jeff, we had conversions.
I think that is amazing right there. Many people of the land professed to be Jews because of the dread of the Jews fell upon them. But again, they converted. They're like, wow, there is something that we see with this God of the Jews.
Again, connecting this to Passover and Shavuot, how
yes. I mean,
was it not a mixed multitude that left Egypt?
Yeah, and even with the Jews being judged right now from following other gods and doing things that were against Torah, right? That's the whole reason they're there, right? Can we just that's the reason they're there. They had messed up. Even in that, they see that their God still loves them. Their God still is giving them favor and granting them protection, so much so that they're like, wow, I need to be this is the true God. I think that's awesome.
Okay, yeah, you have the mixed multitude from Egypt, and keep in mind that the instructions of the Torah, the statutes, the tittles and the jots, the what is the other term? Statutes and ordinances.
Yeah,
it says it's to the foreigner that sojourns with you,
yeah,
the stranger among you alike, right? So I'm just saying, connecting Shavuot and Pesach to the Book of Esther, there's a lot here. Yep. I see a lot of connections to Passover and Shavuot. I see a lot of connections to the Book of Daniel, and what was the other one that we had connected this to?
Jonah.
Jonah. Yeah. There you go, Jonah. Okay, so chapter 9. You ready for this? We're wrapping it up. In the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, right? And the 13th day, this is the day that was set out by Haman 11 months prior. When the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned in the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered together in the cities throughout all the provinces of the mighty king of Darius to lay hand on such their hurt, and no man could withstand them. How much do we see that in the scriptures when Yah is behind the Israelites?
Yeah.
Making thousands flee, Jeff.
Or men the size of grasshoppers going against giants, wiping them out with no problem.
How many times do we see in 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, just a couple? Jonathan and his arm bearer slew, a whole village, a whole valley worth of men, warriors, just the two of them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got all kinds of examples like that. You got Samson with the jawbone of the donkey. Anyways, right. No man would withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all the people, right? Kind of like Jericho. Yep. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and the officers of the king helped the Jews. Yeah. Why? Because they didn't want to lose their government.
Right? They didn't want to lose their seat. Yeah.
And because the fear of Mordecai fell upon him. Remember, he's second in command now.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the guy who took the position from the guy who was trying to have him killed. For Mordecai was great in the king's house. His fame went throughout all the provinces. For this man, Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Sounds a lot like Joseph and Daniel to me.
It does. It absolutely does.
Which I think I mentioned in both the Joseph and Daniel studies. I mentioned Mordecai.
You did.
Talking about being raised to second in command, because you see that with Daniel and Joseph.
Yeah.
and being wise and behaving themselves well and being at the king's gate. These are all things that you can connect to Joseph and Daniel. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, the slaughter of destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. There we have it. Right there in their own town, in the own town and surrounding the palace, 500 men.
Can you imagine? So the hate. So again, think of this. There were people that were on Haman's side. There, we see that at the gate. At the king's gate, there were people that already didn't like Mordecai before any of this had blown up. They're already, if we want to say anti-Semitic or however you want to say it, they did not like Yah's people. And here we go. Even after everything that went on with Haman, and he's probably still hanging out on the crucifixion. He's still rotting as an example. Even after all of this, you still had these men of Shushan rise up to say, you know what? This is the law. We're going to show that we are still in control. Bam. That's I think that's amazing right there.
His body wouldn't have been on that crucifix or the impalement, depending on how you want to take it.
Yeah.
At the time of the battle, because this would have been months after. I mean, you're talking rotting flesh and stuff like that. I think they left him up there for a week.
Yeah.
3 to 7 days, depending on how much the king hated him. And Haman would have been hated strongly. Right. So you're looking at probably closer to a week. But that would have been ingrained in your mind. If every time you look out there, you see Haman, and keep in mind, second in command, they saw the vice president hanging there, whether it was impaled or crossed, whatever, it really doesn't matter. You saw
in
the
their mind,
yeah. There's no getting rid of that, right? With all that being said, 500 within Shushan alone. I find that so depressing and telling. Think back to the two that were discussing an assassination plot to take out the king.
Yeah.
Shortly after the rebellious nature of Vashti. And did I not mention that rebellious nature within the house of a cabinet or close member or spouse of a leader breeds contempt. And when you have a big leader, it breeds the conspiracy plot to assassinate.
Yeah.
And shortly after Vashti rebels, we see people preparing to assassinate. So after Haman, after this uprisal and upheaval and change of turn of events,
Right.
500. Do you think they had it in their mind, Jeff, that if they uprise right there in the palace, this is the center. Keep in mind, the Persians, the way they did things, just a lot like Israel, the capital's in the center. The palace is in the center. Right. And there's a lot of obvious reasons that a lot of ancient empires, big empires, would do this for so many reasons, right?
Right.
Well, they're at that center there. They're at the palace. They're at the city of the palace. Jeff, if any city should be loyal, it should be Shushan. 500. Do you think they had it in their mind and their heart to overrun that palace if they were able to take out all
absolutely.
the Jews?
Absolutely. I think they're going after Hadassah. I think they're going after Mordecai.
Well, at that point, are they not going after Ahasuerus? Are they not going after Darius?
The king. Right. They're going
so
after
at that point, the Jews are fighting for the entire empire of Persia as it stands.
Right.
They're fighting for Darius at this point.
They are.
It's not even just about themselves anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think that they would have realized that. Okay, moving forward, I'm sure everybody's tired of us by now. Parshandatha, Dolphin, Aspatha, Poratha, a bunch of provinces and stuff. Oh, these are the names. These are the
these are the names
the
of
10 sons of Haman. Let's just say that. I'm not going to go through all their names. Forget it.
Yeah.
The 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hands. Why? Because Haman was cursed.
Yeah, they didn't.
And you lay not your hand on the accursed spoil. Keep in mind AI. You do not take your hands on the spoil that has been cursed, even though they've been allowed to. I think with Haman, they were not told. Remember, the decree was for those who rose up against them. This was after Haman and his household. Right. And Haman's household's already been given, and everything's been given to Hadassah, and who gave it to Mordecai. So when it came to the sons, I think they saw that as an accursed thing, and it was bad taste. It's not something that they were commanded to do. They were already happy with what they had. There was no need to. They saw that as greed and evil. So I just find it interesting. You see here, they're not doing a tit for tat. They're not trying to do, well, you did this, I'm going to do this, which is indicative of when the true children of God act the way they're supposed to. When they act as such, as children of Yah, when you see the Israelites and the Hebrews truly being what they're called to be, true Israelites and true Hebrews, this is how they act. They take the spoil which they're allowed to, and they do not assume that which has not been commanded for them to take. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, the 10 sons of Haman, what they have done in the rest of the king's provinces. Now, give me the report. How's it everywhere else? What is thy petition? And it shall be granted to thee. What is thy request further? And it shall be done. What do you want done next?
Hang on. What is something that the king did not say here? Up to half my kingdom.
Oh, I was gonna say you're pulling an Ian on Jeff.
Yeah, he didn't say this time. So So has he opened it up even more because he has seen the genuine wisdom of Yah here that she will not take advantage of him? I think that he has seen that, and that she has proven herself to where he doesn't think she's going to take advantage. Hey, whatever you want done, it's going to be done.
This is no longer pillow talk of, hey, honey, whatever you want. This is wise counsel.
Yes.
This is a report of this city. I've brought it to you. What is the report of the others? Okay. What do you want to do? He's treating her as a war counsel.
He is.
He sees her as equal.
Equal. That's what I was wanting to get to. That he is seeing her as an equal man. It really shows the. This does not fit Xerxes more. Everything that we get to now, this is not Xerxes.
It's hard not to see it, isn't it, Jeff?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're gonna look at the Book of Esther and you're gonna see Darius and a cross, and you're gonna be like, I have Ian to thanks for putting these images in my head that you cannot take out now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, that's really interesting though, and he sees her as equal, which is funny because the whole pleading and supporting Vashti, which we talked about last video, as to why I believe that's unwise and there's a wicked agenda there. And I'm not attacking anybody who believes that, but I think that they need to watch that first video if they haven't, to see why I believe that's dangerous for many reasons and why that's not the case. But look, here's the thing. Those who want to back up Vashti, they're trying to back up the feminism and her women's rights or rights as an individual, however the person sees it. Look at Hadassah's example. Instead of just drawing a line, she was subservient. She did as the Torah shows her to do, as a dutiful, loving, good steward of what she's been given as a godly woman. She was subservient in the way that she was called to be, but not taking man's laws above the ways of Yah, still doing what God says above all, and all these things. And what does she get in the end? What those who want to support Vashti want. They claim that she's trying to get equality between the king and the queen.
She's not. Yeah.
And she goes about it in an ungodly way, and she doesn't get it. She gets banished. But Hadassah, who simply wants to do what God wants her to do, gets what?
She gets that equality.
She gets that equality.
Yeah.
Well, look at this, Jeff. She's being asked, what do we do next? That's what you ask your military leader. That's what you ask your captain. How
like is the enemy to say that which is good is evil and that which is evil is good? That that is the interpretation that Vashti was the one that's trying to get this equality, but no, it was Hadassah, and we see Yah blessing her with this equality. You don't see this. You don't see this anywhere in ancient times where a woman is given this much credence. She is cattle. She's property. She's all these kind of things in these different cultures. And here we see Yah lifting her up, putting her in position, and treating her as equal. I can't get away from that.
I know it. Yeah. Okay, so the king commands it to be done. The decree was given at Shushan that hanged Haman's 10 sons. The Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day of the month of Adar and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hands again. Right. So look, they didn't even and they were allowed to.
Yes, they
were literally given in the decree legal permission.
Yep.
But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of their foes 75,000. There's that number 75 again, though, Jeff.
Yeah.
There we go. 50s, we're seeing 75s, and we're seeing 3s and 7s. There's some interesting things.
That is a lot of people. 75,000 people. I grew up in a little small town in Marshall, Texas. At the height, I think when I was in high school, it was like 32,000 people. That's like killing double, right? Killing almost a little over double the people in that town, just wiped out because they hated. They were walking after hate. They walked into this trap that they thought they had laid, and then they fall into it themselves. Whatsoever man soweth in his heart, that shall he also reap. Do not be deceived. You cannot mock God. Whatever you sow, you will reap. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the heart, you begin to commit that adultery. Out of the heart, you begin to do that murder. Out of that heart, you begin to do that theft. All of these things start off in the heart. That's what Yeshua was trying to get across about the 10 utterances, the 10 words that are spoken in Exodus and Deuteronomy, is that these things are a matter of the heart. You can be doing all the right things, but if you're not doing them out of your heart, right, bam, no good. You can be acting like you're doing the right things, but inside your heart, you're full of dead man's bones. You're wicked. You're vile. He called the Sadducees and the Pharisees wouldn't seize and couldn't seize. He called them a brood of vipers, right? Same thing here. These guys may have looked like they had everything going right. They were the leaders in their communities. They were the leaders in their provinces. They rose up with legal right. They rose up. They said, we have the legal right to do this. And 75,000 of them destroyed. Yeah. How many people were destroyed in Yah's kingdom when they did things wrong, out of a wrong heart, right? I'm thinking of the people that were worshiping the golden calf. I'm thinking of the people that were Uzzah. Hey, the ark is about to fall. Steady it. Falls over dead. All of these things.
And we talked about that in our Genesis 4 discussions. We talked about tens of thousands being swallowed up by the earth. Remember that when we talked about number 16, the rebellion of Korah's company.
Rebellion of Korah.
We really got into that, didn't we? Number 16.
Yeah.
75,000, dude.
That's a lot.
So you've got different parts of the kingdom here doing different things, and there we get different days. So on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled on the 13th day, on the 14th day, and the 15th day, right? So it was those within the wall. Therefore, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting and a good day and sending portions one to another, right?
Yep.
Mordecai wrote unto these things and sent letters to all the Jews that were in the provinces of the mighty king Ahasuerus, the mighty king Darius, both nigh and far, to establish this among them that they should keep the 14th day and the 15th day. Right. So he gave them the 2-day representing Shushan as well as the rest. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned to them from sorrow to joy, from mourning to good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and sending portions one to another, gifts to the poor. The Jews undertook to do as they had begun. Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Hadassah came before the king, that he commanded letters to this wicked device which he devised against the Jews should return upon his own head, that he and his son should be hanged upon the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur, for the casting therefore all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them. Am I going fast enough?
No, you're doing, buddy.
The Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they should keep these 2 days according to the writing, according to the appointment every time of every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout the generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that those days of Purim should not fail among the Jews, nor memorial of them should perish from their seed. Then Hadassah the queen, the daughter of Abihail, the Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm the second letter of Purim, and he sent the letters to all the Jews to the 127 provinces in the kingdom of Ahasuerus with the words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim, the times appointed according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they decreed for themselves and their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. The decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. King Ahasuerus laid a tribute to the land upon the isles of the sea. There's the argument of proving all the more it's Darius, the isles of the sea there. And all the acts of his power.
One thing, brother, I wanted to just throw this in there real quick. Back in the last chapter, verse 22, like the days when the Jews had rest from the enemies, like the month when things turned around for them, changing from sorrow to joy. This is a changing of garments.
Yeah,
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, you also have the scripture talking about mourning changing to joy. You know, talking about those who, and the reversal for those who care for themselves are going to get, the reverse of but those who seek the glory of Yah are going to get joy when they've been mourning and things of that nature. So it is very scriptural language here that we see going on with that.
Yep.
All the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, the great mighty King Darius, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people and seeking peace to all his seed. Okay, I wanted to speed through that because I figured it'd be nice to read through it, but this is chance for closing statements of what you see in those last 2 chapters. I've said pretty much everything I've wanted to say.
Yeah.
So any closing statements, I'm going to give you the go ahead. I'm going to go grab some coffee real quick.
Yeah.
And then I thought what we would do is just discuss for maybe 5-10 minutes, if you're up for it, Purim on views on how to treat that, things like that. And then if there's any Q&A, that's the time for people to bring it up in the live chat. I saw there was a couple of people mentioning, Anthony had mentioned doing a Q&A and stuff like that. So if there's things that people want to ask, we're going to give you that chance to ask it, and we'll discuss it. All right, you got this?
I got it, man. Go.
2 seconds. I'll be right back.
All right. Okay, guys. So again, I want to go back to just for me, kind of recaps of some things that I see with the Book of Esther, especially as we've gone through this in this study. I see it as a formula, or as a way for us to look at approaching the Father. I see it in spiritual context of changing of these garments. Whether you're changing your garment for, from mourning to joy, right? There's scriptures dealing with that. Also, with depending on what kind of prayer that you're dealing with, how are we approaching the Father? All of these things are so vital, and I think that we need to really kind of go back and examine and look at all the mentions of these garments throughout the Scripture. We did a 14-part series on the Levitical priesthood garments that we see and how they relate to us in Messiah. But that is just scratching the tip of the iceberg. Because there's so many garments mentioned in the Tanakh, even mentioned in the Brit Hadashah. And we need to understand that Yah is trying to paint us a picture. He is trying to Bob Ross it up so we get a very good, clear view of how we're to approach him, right? There's those loving instructions, right? He's given us the first 4 commandments on how we're to love him, right? And so how do we approach Yah? Man, I'm telling you what, the Book of Esther gives us a great illustration on how to approach him. And then we should understand also at the end of this that we're commanded. We are commanded for a time to go in and change those garments from mourning to joy. And we have to understand there's a time and a season for everything. And so there is a time for mourning. But guys, listen, don't get hung up and just say that's the only garment that you have, right? We need to understand there's also a time to put on that garment of joy, that garment of praise. And that's a natural progression. If you're in a time of mourning, or you're in a time when you're looking at things like that, you need to be able to transition yourself. Understand that when you recognize that you're in a time of mourning, keep that in the back of your mind that, hey, joy is coming. Joy comes in the morning. And we need to think about that kind of stuff. So think about that, guys. If you find yourself in a place of mourning, understand the progression of mourning goes to joy. And you have to be able to take that coat of mourning off. That is something that you do. That's not something that God does. God doesn't strip you of that coat of mourning. You take that off and you put that other coat of joy on. Hey, brother, welcome back. There we go.
Yeah, and we still got more people listening right now than we normally have live. This is my hat's off to you, metaphorically speaking, for anybody who listened to 3 hours of us, man.
Amen.
I don't know if you looked at some of the numbers live, but we had a bit of an audience tonight. We had a lot of cool stuff to go through. Okay, so I figured we would discuss Purim. Have you done Purim before, Jeff?
I've not. We've done some. I've done fasting before, but I've never had like other people close enough around to participate with. So no, not really.
All right, but you've done it at home with you and the wife a little bit, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit, kind of. Yeah, not massive, right?
Right. Well, okay. So first thing for anybody who's not familiar with Purim, this is not a holy feast day. This is not a day that is commanded by Yah.
Absolutely.
As we mentioned in the book of Esther here, we see it was Mordecai that had told the Jews, we should make a day of this, and he was the one commanding the Jews to do this in remembrance, to not forget. I believe he wanted them to not forget what Yah had done for them. He was excited about it, but there's importance to it, right? So here's the thing: there are those who enjoy it, and then there are those who say that's man's traditions, not commanded by Yah. This is man who commanded it, not God. I don't do man's traditions, this, that, and the other. Right? I've had people tell me that. I've actually had a couple of people yell at me. And they asked me if I do Purim, and I told them, interestingly, this is what I told them. I said, sometimes. And I said, what do you mean sometimes? And I said, well, the wife and I would talk about it, and sometimes we feel like doing it, and sometimes we don't remember until it's already passed, and we're like, well, whatever. Because it's not a holy feast day. So we feel like when it's on our mind, then we're like, oh, yeah, maybe there's something we need to be seeing in this, and we should do it, and we'll enjoy it. But we don't make a big deal out of it. We really don't. We enjoy it. This year we've done the most than we have before. So it's kind of like Hanukkah in the sense of you can do it. And in my mind, there's not a problem, but it's not that you're commanded to do it like Hanukkah, so there's some good things to see there. So I wanted to get that cleared out of the way. Before I go into some of the stuff, forgot my question, but it was a bit off topic anyways. Esther rescued the lineage of the Jews. Here's the thing. If she hadn't, somebody else would have. I believe Mordecai was spot on with that.
Right.
I would love to celebrate Purim or honor it. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here. The analogy is really helpful with the garments. Yeah, Jeff and I both. You get us talking about garments. I've done sermons and blogs about garments. He's done 17 videos on the priest garments alone or something like that. Freaking enough stuff on the priest garments that could have you studying it for a year. So if you're curious about that, go check that out.
Yeah.
That's one of his really fun topics, like Gen 4 for me, priest garments for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and I both really like spiritual garment topics. We just, from Gen 3 on, how do you not? Him and I both see this big time.
Yeah.
We have a person who says it's interesting. The same say that we are to be still and do nothing in the last days, but Esther tells us we need to stand up and do something. And so there's differing ways of taking that. So I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to clarify on how I agree. You have the Jews in Esther fighting back because they are told that they can, which seems to be honored or ordained by God. I would not assume that to be for end times. I do see the believers moving in ways that needs to be stomped out by the enemy in the enemy's eyes, that were a threat to the system. As you and I have talked about before, the beast makes war with the saints because the saints are a threat to the beast and the beast system.
Right.
So where we're at right now, Jeff, I'm not seeing the body being a threat in the way where the beast is like, we must behead them.
Well, and why is it a threat to the beast? Because they are keeping the testimony of Yeshua. They're keeping the commandments, right? One part of the scripture talks about that they love not their lives unto death, right? So all of these things are kind of incorporated around that. And are we really seeing the body of Yeshua as a whole? Now we're not talking about just little things. Yeah. So I definitely see. I think.
And what are the fruits of those things, Jeff? There's healings and miracles. Food miraculously. What do they call that? Multiplying. You have physical healing. You have deliverance from demons. You have people rising from the dead. Jeff, is what it says. The signs of those who fall.
That's right.
We're not seeing any of that. And if it is going on in the body, it is being kept very quiet. I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to cause problems. But I've seen one or two people say along the lines of, if I had claimed this, would I not be? And I don't know if they have or not, because they wouldn't outright say it, but they were hinting at, along with the idea that whether I claimed it or not, if I did claim it, would you not think I'm nuts? Would you not try to put me in a psychopathic house or put me in prison? And that's the thing, is the body shouldn't be in there. So obviously we're not there yet. In my opinion, we're not there yet because we're not seen as a threat. We're not, the miracles are happening, yes, but they're not abounding in the way where the body is such a threat, where the beast said we must behead them to be done away with them. Okay, so before I get into how I suggest to do about Purim, if you're going to do it, again, I'm not telling anybody that they must or should or whatever. If you're interested, if you're curious, a lot of people are doing it this week. Depending on your views of how you calculate the calendar, keep in mind there's many different calendars. You've got different ways of starting the month, right? You've got sliver, you've got conjunction, but you've got also those who are going off of harvest or equinoxes and all kinds of things like that. There's differing interpretations of how a month starts. What is a month? When does a day and end start and end? What constitutes as a week? Jeff, we when it comes to the calendar, this body argues about every single
little thing.
Everything that you say, well, surely we don't argue about this. Yes, we do. We argue about every single piece of calendar and timing, and we've all got our opinions and stuff. So, of course, in the midst of that, I have my views on things. I'm not going to go into all that now, but anybody's interested can always ask me. But so anyhow, because it's not a holy feast day, I didn't want to do it during the week. I had it earlier on this week than most calendars have it. I believe I had it like Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it was Monday, Tuesday. And I think a lot of people have it Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Again, depends on your calendar you're prescribed to. But anyhow, it's not a holy feast day. So I told my family, I'm not going to take off work for it because it's not a holy feast day. We'll do it this weekend. So we did it all this weekend. So I'm about to go into what we did to give you guys ideas if anybody's interested. But real quick, Jerry asked in the comments here, how can I connect to the links? I can't write that fast. I don't know what you're talking about. So if you still have that question, how can I connect to the links? If you can explain what links and who you were trying to get a hold of there, I'd love to be able to answer that in some way. Do you think God would have voiced his displeasure if he hadn't approved of Mordecai's suggestion of the celebration days? Ooh. That is a really well put question.
That
Do you
is.
think God would have voiced his displeasure? Personally, yes, I do. I think that personally, honestly, can I get real?
If y'all is thinking that this is adding to the Torah, I think that something would have been said.
Jeff, can I get real opinionated here?
Buddy. Let's get it.
In my opinion, it would say it in the book of Esther, because that's how Yah tends to do things in Scripture. He'll literally say, so-and-so said this and thought in their heart that. And I think we would see that with this. We see the statements that outright say Mordecai commanded it. There's no sneaky someone stating God commanded it, but he really didn't do it or anything like that. So I think in those verses, when it says Mordecai commanded the people, I think we would be seeing a little sidebar verse saying, because in his heart, he thought this was a good thing. And though this was not of God's ways and went against God's ways, God didn't hold it against him or something like that. And we would see that. And a lot of us would go, oh, maybe that was better for them then than us now, and we should just not touch it.
Kind of the same thing that we see with Hanukkah in the book of Maccabees. We don't see where Yah's like, hey, you can't celebrate this military victory, right? We don't see that. It's not about the I want to get into all that kind of stuff. It's not about the lighting of the menorah miraculously and all that. I don't want to get into that. It's literally about Yah delivering them out of the hands of supernaturally delivering them out of the hands of the Seleucid army. And again, I think that if it was something that was incorrect or something like, I think that we would have, because we see that in the scripture, right? All the way through the scripture, we see Job's friends obviously going against some things in Torah. We see them going against things that where God would say, because he actually mocks them with some of their ideas and their ideology. We see that all the way through. We even see correction with the apostle Peter, where Paul has to stand up and correct him, for behavior that we would not have known about except if it hadn't been written. So I think that God would have definitely shown some correction there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree as well. I'm responding. Somebody said some really nice things. They said the 3 hours went quickly. And I said, man, I get the feeling your wife and my wife would be like, oh, yeah. Listen to them do this all the time. How many times have you and I done this after a video?
Oh, yeah.
Click on the links. I still don't know what links you guys are talking about. If you want us to put specific links, please tell me what it is, and I'll try to help with that. Otherwise, maybe I'm just chiming in people's conversations that have nothing to do with me.
Either that or put them in the comments after the live video's up. That way everybody could have the links. If you're asking for certain websites, certain references, certain whatever, put that in the comments after the live program.
And we'll do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can do it. We can do it live. We can do it after. I love when people put comments after, because then we can put it in there.
Well, and that way they can actually click on it and be able to get to it instead of trying to write it down real quick.
Right. That's a good point. Okay. We have one more question. What day are you guys starting Passover? If you were to answer it, I'm sorry. All right. Do you have your Passover date selected yet? Do you have your?
I'd have to go back and look at it. Yeah, it's actually right back here on my little calendar. But yeah, we've got it. Oh, yeah.
Jeff said, I don't want to turn around for all this.
Yeah.
He said, yeah. Okay. So me personally, and there's probably a lot of people in the chat that are going to disagree with me on this, but this is where I'm at. This is where I've been for quite some time, for the majority of the 8 years. I've changed a couple times, but then I went back.
Yeah.
I'm a conjunction over sliver. That's the one thing I see the sliver arguments, man. I consider it a lot. I'm still personally at conjunction though. For anybody who doesn't know what the terminology means, that means when I look for the new moon, I look at the new moon before the sliver when it's completely gone. So that black full circle on your calendar, that represents the new moon in the secular understanding, and that's what I use for the new moon as well. There's others who believe that the verses that talk about when you see the new moon, and they say, how can you see it if you're seeing nothing? So they'll argue that within those first 3 days after what the secular world calls the new moon, that's the new moon, that's the sliver, that's the beginning of the waning or the waxing. It's right. And so anyways, most in the body, not everybody, but most in the body, as it seems to me, goes off of either conjunction or sliver to figure out when the beginning of a Hebrew month is, because we see that the moon was for the beginnings of months in scripture. Some people actually dismiss that, and I think that Zadok doesn't even use the moon for months, which I think is odd.
Right.
But anyhow, so I'm a conjunction guy, which means I think, what is that, April 1st. So I have the beginning of the Hebrew year and the beginning of the Hebrew month of Abib starting, and I'm an evening to evening guy. You see, anybody who's not familiar is probably like, are you serious? Yeah, there's a little bit of everything, right? So I'm a conjunction, not sliver. Yeah. For the days, I do evening to evening, meaning I believe that scripturally the Hebrew days start with the sun going down. So the beginning of the month, in my opinion, as I see it, for Abib, is the sun going down on April 1st. So what I do is I take a calendar, and this is how I do it, because this is how it works for me, so that I do it multiple times to make sure, because it's complicated stuff. I point at the bottom of that number 1 to mean evening, and I go 1, and I slide my finger up to the top part of the 2, and I go, end of 1. So I go 1, and then I go down and I go 2, right? And I do this, and it's stupid, but I do it, Jeff. Even when it starts out at 1, I do that. And so with that being said, the 14th of Abib, the day for Passover, would be starting on the evening of the 14th. That's the Thursday, 14th of April. But I am also the guy This is how weird we get with things. I don't talk calendar much, okay? So bear with me. But for anybody who's curious, I've got the beginning of the 14th of Abib starting on the evening of the 14th of April, but the Passover meal being the evening of the 14th, meaning the 14th going into the 15th.
That's where I'm at.
And I've been that way for all 8 years. But I remember when I first came across that, I was like mind blown. I was like, oh, it's on the 14th, but it's the evening of the 14th. So on the Gregorian calendar, I have the Passover meal, the Pesach meal being as the sun's starting to go down on Friday, the 15th of April. That's when I have for the Passover meal.
That's what we've got on our calendar that we've got here.
All that to explain that. Isn't that
and guys, listen, I don't really, I try not to touch. That's one thing we don't really touch a lot on our program is the calendar, just because there is so much into it, and there's so many great wax on, wane off.
Hey, well, but she's answering my question because I wasn't sure, and you didn't say anything, so she helped me. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at my calendar, man, because it can be so confusing because there are so many facets to the calendar, and I'll be honest, I have studied a lot of them, but there are so many different facets of it, and there's so many people that make really good points from other points of view, and I just really want to make sure people understand. Not sacred namers, not sacred calendars. I guess that's how you'd say that. I don't know how you'd say that, right? But there are a lot of people.
I simply say not goofy.
Yeah.
Can we say that, Jeff?
Yeah.
You and I try not to be goofy. We have our opinions. We have our understandings of why. We'll have that discussion. Jeff and I agree on a lot of things, but we don't agree on everything. And and we're willing to sit there and hear a person out and say, that's an interesting point. And if you're trying to convince us, or if we're trying to consider it, we'll ask you more and we'll think on your viewpoint. But at the end of the day, we know where we sit. We know why we sit where we sit. But Jeff and I will also be the first to tell you we could be wrong. This is where we sit. This is why we sit there. We don't think we're wrong, but obviously we both know we don't have everything right. So we got to be wrong on something, right, Jeff?
Right.
And well, this is one of those things that we're like, hey, it's very possible we're wrong. We try not to be, but it's hard not to be wrong about the calendars, right?
Absolutely, man. And there's so many different trains of thought. There's all kind of stuff. And listen, I want to say this. No one has it all the way figured out on the calendar. You know what? And
except for the Zadok guys.
Right.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I've got love for the Zadok guys, and they're very interesting. And every time I consider it, I look at it because I think they might be onto something. And then right when I start to think that, I go talk to them, and they don't tend to be goofy, which is nice. But they do tend to think that they've got the answer and everybody else has got it wrong. And the calendars don't seem to act that way.
Oh, I have seen people that we're not even talking sacred name. If you don't agree with my calendar, you obviously don't have the spirit of Yah. You're not even in covenant. And that's crazy. Like that. Crazy. Fruit loops. That's what I call them. Fruit loops.
I don't associate typically with people like that. When they're like that about their names or calendars, I'll be nice and I'll keep them as a Facebook friend. But listen, you're not going to be part of my tight circle when you're goofy like that because
I agree.
That's just how it is, Yeah.
So
has had me.
So what do you do? How do you guys celebrate Purim?
Real quick, are the Judaic calendars accurate? I would say for anybody starting out new, if the idea of trying to figure out calendars seems overwhelming, you could look at that. But I would just say to look at what the scriptures show you and try to go off your understanding of what you feel God is showing you. So when you look at Leviticus, 23, the feast days, and you look for Passover, look how it says the 14th day of Abib. Spend a little time, pray on things and look at things and see what seems right to you on how to figure out that, and go off of that.
Hey, the first couple of years before I even got in the calendar, before I even realized there was a calendar issue, man, I'm just sitting there Googling, okay, when do I celebrate Passover? Bam. And a date would pop up. You know what? Yah is knowing my heart with the information that he has got in here so far that the light bulb has been screwed on and lights up, and that's where I was for a couple of years. And I'm doing the best I have with what I have been allowed to come in. And just like, anything else, we're still walking. There's some grace here, guys, because we've all inherited lies from our fathers, and we're all still trying to unlearn lies. We're trying to unlearn traditions. We're trying to figure out exactly what we're supposed to do with what we have. So I think if you're trying to celebrate right now because you feel the Spirit of God tugging on your heart, because because you feel like, wow, this is the first time I really feel that I want to celebrate. I don't want to do Easter. I want to do Passover. Can we just say it like that?
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe you might be off a day or two. Maybe you're off a week. Maybe you're off a month. I don't know. Whatever. You know what? Yah looks at your heart and says, wow, my child, even though he's been raised up with not knowing what my word really says, he has a heart and a desire, right? How about the first time that the priests with Josiah, they're going to clear out the temple and do all this stuff? They hadn't even read Torah. They didn't even know what Torah was. Did they do everything right the first time? No, they didn't. But God,
they were freaked out when they were reading it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we've done none of this. We've been doing none of this.
We've been doing the opposite, right?" So yeah.
Do you have a printed secondary calendar that you use to find the Hebraic days and months? No, I literally have my understanding. I've got 8 years of doing this. I have my understanding, and every time I look at it, the scriptures to me seem to reinforce and support my beliefs on where I stand, and I go off of that. So I use my new moons for the months, and I count evening. That's what I do. But
7 days is 7 days, brother.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Okay, so no, it's not a lunar calendar because I see the moon for the month, the sun for the days, and the stars for the seasons. That's where I'm at. So I don't actually fall under any of the calendars because the conjunction don't do evening to evening and stuff like that. So I can look at multiple calendars, but there isn't actually any calendar set that I'm aware of that does things the way I do. But anyhow, okay, that's a lot of calendar talk. All right. So overall, I think we got it across that we're not going to hold it against anybody for trying to figure out what they seem fair. I simply just suggest you ask God to show you and go off of what you think He's showing you. You know,
and don't beat people up if they don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Calendar's a tricky subject.
I think this is interesting. Mitzi says she got the same day, but with a different method. I love when that happens. I've seen a Sukkot gathering, 3 different calendars landed on the same day. That only happens so often. You know, and it's so cool when you get the fellowship where everybody's like, because you know, I don't know about you, Jeff, but like I've been invited to gatherings to where it was a different time, but that was my option to do Sukkot with them or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm, you know, if it's doing it the days that I think home alone or doing it with fellowship on a couple, you know what I mean? And so it's really neat when you get to do it and everybody's got the different views, but it's on the same days. Cause then everybody has that feeling of you're not struggling internally of like, man, I really think it's the other day, you know, not that it's all about that. Cause it's not, but you know, it's nice when you have that not on your conscience and everybody's got a different calendar and you're still on the same days. It's kind of neat to see that. Okay. So anyways, I don't go off of Jerusalem time. I go off of I'm looking at when the sun goes down for me, not Jerusalem time. And my one argument for that is when you look at the other Jews around scriptures, when they're nowhere near Jerusalem, I don't see any indication of them looking for sundown or the days on Jerusalem. I see them looking at their harvest, their times, their sundowns. So I don't think it's about the Jerusalem timing. But that's my argument for that. I'm not going to get into that. All right, let's get into the show. We asked for questions and it's all calendar. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not the expert on this. I thought I explained where I'm at. I have nothing more to say. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think we gave good enough answers though for where we sit and where we. Yeah,
let's bring it back to Purim.
Okay, so back to Purim. Okay, so real quick, here's the funny thing, right? When you look at the Orthodox Jew and you look at the traditions for Purim, I'm not going to say it's all evil and terrible and pagan and heathen and man's traditions and stuff like that. I'm just saying that when I look at it, I don't do it that way. Okay. I look at it and in my mind and in my heart, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, you guys are trying to remember that day, but you've turned it seems kind of like a mix between Mardi Gras and Halloween. And
that's what I was going to bring up.
And I'm sitting there going, you know, you got to remember, I used to do ministry apologies. Right. I used to do street evangelism. I used to, you know, when we talk about Jonah being not swallowed by a whale and how that impacts an atheist and going over disproving Catholic doctrine and stuff like that. I have that mind and heart now to look at how other people see things. And that's not why I have an issue with the Mardi Gras Halloween view that I have towards the Orthodox Jewish version of Purim. But I'm sitting there going, people already think that Esther was a rewritten version of a Babylonian play
Right.
fiction literature, and now you guys are turning it into what looks like a Babylonian feast. And it doesn't feel right to me. So I'm not going to bash anybody who's do that. I'm just saying, for me in my household, the masks and the costumes and things, and folks, when I say Halloween and Mardi Gras, depending on where you look, you start doing some Google imagery and stuff like that. I mean, they've got their little ones dressed up as things that have nothing to do with Judaism. Right. Or I mean, you've got stuff where it's like, okay, yeah, for Halloween it would make sense, but what are you doing for Purim? What does this have to do with Purim? And they say, oh, because Hadassah she hid her that she was a Hebrew because Mordecai charged her to hide it. But that does not mean put your child in Mario and Luigi outfits. I don't understand how that translates. Right. In my mind, it doesn't. Okay, you want your children to read Mario and Luigi. I'm not fighting you on this, but to wear that for Purim, it doesn't. I have a disconnect there. It makes no sense to me.
It's the same thing that they're trying to synchronize. Halloween with Purim. They're trying to synchronize Hanukkah with Christmas. And we see the Hanukkah bush, all this stuff. All of these different things we see, trying to bring them into these different holidays, and trying to get them mixed up and get some kind of worldly and get them off of what they're really supposed to be. They were doing reenactments of the events in that we call Purim. They were reliving this whole like you said, your kids did a play, right? Yeah. Could you have someone dressed as a camel? Sure. Right, there was camels there, right? Could you have someone dressed as Haman? Yeah. Could you have someone dressed as a king? Yeah. Can you have them dressed as Hadassah? Sure. Could you have a Vesti there? Yeah. You can have whatever is included here. I can see you including that, but I love Mario and Luigi. It has nothing to do with it, right?
I bring that up because I've actually seen that. When you look up Jewish Purim stuff,
really,
they've got them dressed up in all kinds of stuff because they're showing the Jewish Orthodox. They go to each other's houses and they celebrate. And I'm saying, hey, if you have the fellowship to make a family thing where you have other families and stuff, go for that. We don't really have that, but if you do it, if you're going to do it, I think that's great. So here's my views, okay? And this is how I've seen Scripture since being born again. I tend to look at Scripture and I look at what I see and what I feel Yah's showing me, and then I try to do that. And then later on, I find out, usually years later, that other people are doing the same, but it looks a little different. And I go, oh, funny. Right. Kind of like how we talk about with tzitzis. The Native Americans read corners of your vestures, of your garments, and they went with elbows and knees.
Yeah.
But Western society goes with belt loops, right? You got the Hebrews tend to go with the bottom of the tunic, right?
Or just wearing a tallit, right?
Have you seen or just wearing a tallit? These are all fine in my book. I think it's great that there's all these different views. It's so neat to see something to not be like, oh, but that's wrong. I'm sitting there going, you guys found another way to do this. Have you seen I'm not sure if it's just the Black Hebrew Israelite group that does this, but have you seen this where they have a fringe and the blue cord is around the fringe?
No.
Yeah, there's a group that does that. And I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, it literally says blue cord intermingled with tassel. A way you could
do it like that.
I wouldn't interpret it that way, but it could be interpreted to where it's a tassel, a fringe with it. It's the hem. It was the hem of the tassel.
Wow.
The tassel. And I'm sitting there going, another example. And I think that's so cool. Like with the variant calendars and stuff, you'd see all these different views.
That's good.
So, I see different things and I think it's cool. But this is what I see when I look at Purim, okay? Before I found out about everybody treating it like Halloween and Mardi Gras. And when I say Mardi Gras, Jeff, Jerusalem acts like Sodom and Gomorrah.
They do. Now that I've seen. Right.
More than Vegas. They do some things, I mean, and there's different types of Jews around the world and the different types of cultures. And you have the Ashkenazi and the Yemenite and all these different things. And it's neat to see all these different stuff. And usually you have the cookies made like a hat, like the Hamantashen, right?
Right.
Okay. Which none of those things I would think of, right? Whether they're good, okay, or not okay.
Right.
When I look at Esther, what I think about for my house, I sit there and go, okay, if you have a little girl and she likes to dress up as princessy queen stuff, my household, we don't tend to encourage that too much, right? Yeah. This is the one time of the year that we encourage it.
Sure.
Okay, so this year we bought my daughter and my son. You keep in mind they're young. Okay, we bought my son crowns and my daughter diadems. What do they call those? The tiaras, and they were child ones because they're 6 and 3. So they come with the gems to put on them, and that was part of the craft is they make their own crowns, king and queen or whatever. When I look at the Book of Esther, I see 6 months of bathing in myrrh, and I see 6 months of bathing and other stuff. And I say this: if you want to do Purim, and if you want to try to be biblical with it, I say this is the time to tell your wife and or daughters, you want a spa day, you want a salon day, you want a time to sit down. You want to buy a face mask. I told my wife, I said, you want to buy a face mask? She likes those foot masks.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you know there's such a thing as a foot mask? I asked my wife, I said, how can I have a foot mask? How can you have a foot mask? Your feet have no eyes or mouth. What is this? What is she loves them. My wife absolutely loves them. She puts them on, and man, she sits there and she's like, oh, this is amazing. And she's like in her, So I told her, you want foot masks, you want face masks.
Hang on, brother. And there's different kinds of foot masks I've learned from my wife. She likes the kind that are not sticky on the outside. Just throwing that out there.
Huh. Yeah. See, my wife's got the ones that it basically looks like somebody made like a cut off plastic bag, and it's got some kind of cream thing inside of it or something.
Yeah.
She loves it.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're sticking on the outside, but man, my wife will sit there and that's like one of the few times where she's like so happy and glowing because her feet are in these little plastic. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
Oh yeah.
So I say the women of your household, this is the time to give them a salon spa day.
Yeah.
If you're okay with them going to a salon or spa or something. My little daughter, we don't want her doing stuff like that because we don't want her to be about makeup and things.
Right.
And she's 6, so we really didn't want to, because we had talked about maybe having her hands done or her feet, but then we realized she's not going to enjoy her feet. So my wife and my daughter, they did a tea party the past couple of days. And my daughter loved that. Princess tea party. We told my daughter, you want to wear your little princess dress around the house the whole day? We won't even make one comment about it.
Nice.
Go for it. Queen. She loved it. She made a little crown. She wore it. My son wore a special Arabic tunic, and he had his little crown, and he's loving it. They have these little fake, cheap plastic ring jewelry things that are running around the house doing that. My wife and my daughter and my son too. Bath bombs.
Yeah.
Bath bombs, face masks, feet masks, little crown things. So for the females especially, I say this is the time to give them spa treatment salon days. Tell them go do their nails. In my mind, if we had a bigger community, if I had multiple households in the neighborhood or something that were part of this, I would try to get all the women and daughters to go together and have that time as a women's hen's house, doing nails and hair, and they get the time to talk to each other and things like that, and then the guys can go do something else. That's what I would do. So you have that, and all throughout the Book of Esther, you have feasts. So I say do feasts. It doesn't have to be huge. And unlike the actual biblical feast, we don't have what you must and must not eat. I'd like to suggest Middle Eastern and Persian food because it is amazing. And this is Jews in a Persian land. I'm just going to throw that out there. You make a feast how you want.
So you're recommending some couscous?
Oh man, we had tabbouleh, we had couscous, we had different kinds of herbs and spices with the bread. What do they call that? We had hummus, we had baba ganoush, we had dolma, right? We had Turkish coffee, which I love. Again, don't tell on me to my Armenians.
But
we
FYI, Kinsley actually has a dress. We'll put it on her one night. Yeah, she has a dress she wears. There you go. That's one of the comments.
And we had some gyros and stuff. Go to a Middle Eastern place. That's my suggestion for things. So you have your time to do some feasts. Jeff, I didn't make anything. My wife made beet hummus. She used 2 beets to make hummus.
Really?
The most bright red. You ever see those images of like Indian, Ethiopian open place markets and you see spices and stuff and you're like, how do they get things so vibrantly colored?
Yeah.
This beet hummus was a color that you could taste and feel by looking at it. It was insane. Surprisingly, 2 whole beets and it didn't even taste like a beet.
Wow.
So yeah, chance for Mediterranean food, chance to have the women, especially you can have the males do things too. I wouldn't say the same kind of things, but if you like getting, back massage or you want some downtime, rest time or whatever it is, I would say this is how you would observe Purim. This is how my household does it. That's how we would suggest doing it.
Nice.
So it's not what you see the Orthodox Jews doing, but feasts, bath bombs, face masks, Middle Eastern food. And if you got little ones, putting on a play. Now, that's something the Orthodox do tend to do.
Yeah, they do.
Putting on a play.
Right.
And it's a good way to ingrain it, If you've got little ones, like under 10, and you're looking for Purim activity books, and children's books and things, put it in the comments. I've been doing this for 2 weeks, looking at every example. I will throw you more, enough to come out of your ears.
Well, and you brought up,
shawarma.
I think
Somebody said shawarma. Yes, shawarma. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you brought up at the beginning all the maple stuff you guys got.
Oh yeah, we did. We did
sweet.
get a lot of maple. That was about desserts and stuff. We watched a lot of Esther movies the past couple weeks.
Sure.
So movie.
Well, and that's okay. So to me, that's what Purim is about remembering, and that's what Maccabees is about, or Hanukkah. It's about remembering. It's what all the Yah ordained, or the feasts that we're commanded to do. But we can still look at these, even though these are not commanded. There's supposed to be things that are brought to our remembrance. And so I love the fact of sitting down and watching maybe an Esther movie, just like during the Passover. Guys, listen, I love to watch. Let's throw on Cecil B. DeMille's. Let's get it. Even though I don't agree with everything theologically in the movie, I don't think it was Ramses. I don't think all this kind of stuff.
We'll get into that.
It's kind of like everybody just hating on the Chosen right now. You know what? I don't agree with everything theologically in the Chosen. I agree with a lot more of it than I do with most other portrayals of the gospel. And wow, people are saying, well, this guy is of this denomination, or Peter's not even the guy playing Peter. He's actually a secular Jew. He's not even born again, or all this kind of stuff. Whatever. Hey, you know what? The portrayal is the closest and the most accurate as I have seen. Do they have it all right? No. And guess what? If you were doing it, you wouldn't have it all right either. So get off your high horse. Sorry.
We have Persian turkey, jeweled rice, greens, and Purim cookies. Mrs. Vader, that sounds amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Zatar. Of course, we've got Zatar, but we have Zatar in the house. And we got shawarma mentioned. We didn't actually have shawarma this time around for Purim, but we do eat shawarma. More often than your average American household. Again, I'm mostly Middle Eastern.
Yeah. So what is shawarma?
Shawarma, man. You're looking at different types of rice and meats depending on what kind of shawarma you want to make. You got like your beefs and chickens and stuff, but it really comes down to the types of spices and things like that you're using. That's what makes it Middle Eastern versus like your Thai versions and things like that of what they would call something else. It is the Middle Eastern version of chicken or beef and rice.
Right.
Jeff.
Right.
Okay, but it's so much more than that.
No, I've had shawarma. I've had shawarma. I just want. When we say these things,
you're trying to quiz me. You're trying to quiz
me. No. A lot of people don't know what we're talking about. People back home, they don't even call it a gyro. They call it a gyro, right? Hey, I'm gonna go to that Greek restaurant and get a gyro. Yeah. So or I'm going to Arby's. They've got a gyro on sale. I don't know. So just a lot of different things. I like us to kind of explain these things. What's a latke? What's all these different things like that. So,
latkes.
Yeah.
My wife was gonna make some latkes, man. She hasn't, but she might tomorrow, the next couple of days. I don't know. I know she's probably gonna still do some things like that. But all right, man. Well, do you have any questions for me how I do Purim? Do you have things you want to mention on Purim that you want to suggest?
I think sitting back, either reading through Esther, watching a couple different Esther movies.
Esther, good point.
Getting these things into our spirits again, bringing them up. Again, that's what these things are, is to bring these things up so we can meditate on them. Yeah.
Which is why we did these 2 videos, which why I was so happy that you could join me tonight, since there was issues yesterday with you and me with computer and technology. I wanted to get these out just like I want to get the Passover videos out in time that people can
use them.
They'll already have it fresh in their mind. They'll get to hear our opinions and our points and whether or not they agree with us. And whether they agree or not, we're throwing enough mental stimulation at them that it's got to be vibing in your mind. So you're rare and ready to go.
Yeah,
it's time to do these things. You've got a new, deeper appreciation, I'd like to think.
And that's a lot of people do a Passover video, and I've been guilty of this. We do it like either the same week or the week before, and it doesn't give people really enough time to understand what they're trying to do or even prepare properly to get into to be able to experience a proper Passover or a Shavuot or the Feast of Trumpets or all these different things like that. So I think that's great. I'm good, man. This is probably one of my we're in it,
fun.
but we went almost really 4 hours.
This study. We almost went 4 hours, which is insane. Baklava's more Greek, by the way. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I would definitely prefer more of a kanafa, or a what was the other one that we had that was really good?
You got me on that.
Kanafa, dude.
What's
You come out to Ohio, we'll get you some kanafa.
All right.
You like cheese desserts that are like chewy,
dude. You had me at cheese,
dude. I'm telling you. Yeah, I know that's kind of a Caucasian thing, isn't it? Cheese.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
something about that, but
cheese and put some mayonnaise on it, brother. It'd be good. There we go. I'm kidding.
And yeah, my mom's really good at the grape leaf dolma. For whoever's asking, that runs in my mom's side of the family, generations. The dolma done with grape leaves. We used to grab out of the garden. But all right, man, I'm good. You're good. We've been on here way too long, but we got everything in. Falafel. Yes, I had falafel tonight too. Man, I like up all my favorite foods. Yeah. But it's got to be done right.
I had falafel the first time in Manhattan from a street vendor. But I did.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very Middle Eastern. That sounds
but it tasted good. Yeah, it was questionable.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
There's very few street foods that I'll trust. All right, man. I'm good to go. I think we've had enough questions. People are basically just talking about foods now.
Yeah.
But
getting
okay.
kind of hungry.
Yeah. All right, man. So next week, I'm going to be praying this week because I'm looking at one of 4 things happening next weekend. Either I'm going to be doing a video on the perspective of Yah. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be rehashing an old topic and study that I have. Possibly doing the 3rd and final video of the Joseph series. I've done 2, but I never did the 3rd and never closed up. I kind of rushed at the end of the 2nd one and left out a bunch of stuff, and I've been feeling crappy about it ever since. Or continuing the Daniel study.
Yeah.
Or starting the Exodus study. And if we start the Exodus study, because I don't want to do a video when I'm observing Passover, because I want to actually have the time off that weekend.
Yeah.
So if we were to do the Exodus study starting this weekend coming up, we'd be doing the first 14 chapters of Exodus in 4 videos. Yeah. So it's a matter of whether or not I feel led in prayer to do 3 or 4 videos on Exodus. The way you and I talk, it might need to be 4.
Wow.
I will keep you up to date, because if we do the Daniel, I'm going to want you to join. And if we do the Exodus, I'm going to want you to join.
And we're still finishing up Jonah on my channel, right? This Tuesday, right?
Yes, we still have more to say about Jonah.
It's good stuff.
You think we'll finish it in the 3rd video?
No.
You don't think so, Jeff? Really? Oh, man. We talk too much, I tell you. Okay, let's see what happens. Anybody who's not familiar with the Jonah videos, definitely go check them out at the Way Remnant stuff. The Way Remnant stuff. The Way Remnant Ministries. I've got the link there in the description. I put it in there. I don't know if you noticed I've been doing that.
Appreciate that.
You can just go on the description of the video here on YouTube, and you can click on one of those 2 links. One of them is to his ministries. There's more than a few videos I've done with him over there, but he's got a bunch of other stuff too that's worth looking at. Yeah. But yeah, we're doing the Jonah video, and if you missed the last week's video of Esther, you got to go back and do it. Is Winged Infinity or Mrs. Vader's in here, right? You're talking about doing Purim. Go watch the first one if you haven't done it. I'm telling you. You want to know how to be best prepared for Purim? Watch our videos on that.
That's it.
Right there. Okay. All right. We've said enough. We're good to go, right, Jeff? You're ready to go?
I'm ready to go, man.
All right. Thank you all for joining in,
Absolutely.
whether it's live
Thank
or
you for having
otherwise.
me in.
Man. We're glad to have you guys here. We got to have some mentally, spiritually stimulated conversations going into Esther in depths that I have never gone this far into before. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot of things from it.
Hey, one more thing. Miss Vader said you got my sub, Jeff. I appreciate that. We're not a big ministry. We almost have, I think we're like at 289 on our subs. We hit 300. We're going to give out a couple of our books for free. So just
go tell 11 of your friends, and then tell them to put your name on the scrap of paper to get a free book from Jeff, and then you've got it all set up. Tell them, say, if I have favor in your sight, if it pleases you, put my name in for Jeff to give me a free book. Do something like that. There you go, right?
Hey, write the word shake and bake. There we go. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for joining in. We enjoy the fellowship. We hope that Yah use this to guide you and bless you. And we pray that he keeps you and guides you, and that his face shines upon you according to his will. Okay. Thank you all for coming in. Good night. Shalom. Be blessed.
Shalom, guys.
Yeah. He's alive. that simple, man. Draw nigh to God, man. Yeah. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you. Draw nigh to God, he will draw nigh unto you.